Chapter 5:14. Until there was no longer that person's figure in the room, and the candlelight seemed to gradually cool down, Shen Miao was still sitting in front of the table. Xie Jingxing's words before he left made her unable to calm down for a long time. Like this prince, one was born to be above others. Could it be that Xie Jingxing had discovered some clues? But this was not possible. She carefully thought about the interactions with Xie Jingxing in her past life. There was no interaction at all, and they did not even speak a word. Shen Miao thought about it again, and suddenly found that she had wasted too much time on this matter. Thinking that Xie Jingxing had inexplicably disturbed her life, anger rose in her heart. But in the residence of Prince Rue at the other end, Xie Jingxing returned to his room. The room that he slept in was almost comparable to an exquisite bedroom. He casually threw away the cloak in his hands and wiped his hands with a silk cloth. A white thing suddenly jumped out from the corner and pounced and bit that black cloak, shaking its head in joy. Xie Jingxing looked coldly at that furball playing with the cloak for a while before picking it up from the ground. What kind of conduct is this? His face was filled with disdain. The white tiger cub sneezed, and its claws grabbed onto Xie Jingxing's collar before being expressionlessly thrown into the nest at the side of the bed.
Tai Yi,
Xie Jingxing said. A black figure swept in from the outside. What instructions does master have? Xie Jingxing pointed to the cloak on the ground. Tai Yi's lips twitched. That was a cloak made of black lion fur. It was hard to find even with 1,000 gold. The only black lion fur cloak in the Great Liang's treasury was ruined like this? Tai Yi wanted to shed tears of sympathy for Emperor Yongle. Take it out and throw it away. Xie Jingxing started to undress. Tai Yimu picked up the robe in a daze and said yes. Everyone knew that Prince Rue was most fond of cleanliness and ordinary people could not touch it. This cloak was ravaged to this state. One think that Xie Jingxing would not want it anymore. And no one dared to secretly keep the things that Prince Rue had worn before. Tai Yi seemed to see the silver flowing away. Just as he walked to the door, he heard Xie Jingxing saying, "Wait." Tai Yi turned his head back. Xie Jingxing hesitated for a moment before frowning. Never mind.
Clean it and keep it.
Tai Yi stared blankly for a moment before happily nodding his head. Carrying the cloak, he quickly left the room. His face was filled with gratification. Good. Master finally knew not to be arrogant and lascivious. This was the best. Only then could he support the future of the entire Great Liang. The Ding capital welcomed the first snow of this winter. Snowflakes were scattered all over the ground. The snow-white snow was extremely cute. When winter came, the women on the streets began to change into coats and skirts embroidered with all kinds of patterns. They also wore all kinds of velvet cloaks and cloaks, looking extremely elegant. On such a snowy day, holding an oil paper umbrella and walking alone, if one's face was as beautiful as a lotus flower, one would look even more elegant. In the western courtyard of the Shun residence, there was someone standing in front of the courtyard looking at the flying snow outside. Young Lady Qing also did not enter the room to sit. Stay outside like this, and be careful not to catch a cold. The Ding capital is not as warm as the Lu province, and the wind in winter is very cold. Someone spoke with a smile. She was wearing a light yellow robe with big sleeves and a light red Rui 100-bird skirt. She was graceful and her hair was combed into a chow bun. If one were to look at her from afar, one would think that she was a young female of some family. This person was Chun Ro Chiu. That person standing at the side of the courtyard turned her head over. She was wearing a simple snow-green long robe that was elegant and moving. Chang Zaiqing smiled. It rarely snows in the Lu province, and it is rare for it to snow a few times in a winter. The snow in the Ding capital is really cute. One wanted to take a good look. Chun Ro Chiu smiled. Appreciating the snow and discussing wine is an elegant matter. Young Lady Qing is indeed elegant. She said, in the future, if young Lady Qing were to stay in the Ding capital, it would not be rare to see it a few times. It snows every year, and it is so cold. Chapter 5:15. Song Zaiqing only smiled. and did not speak. Both of them were gentle and elegant, as if they were young ladies from a scholarly family. Each and every move was pleasing to the eye, as if they were a pair of sisters. Chun Rochio pulled Song Zaiqing's hands. No matter how much young Lady Qing likes the snow, one must not stay in this courtyard for too long, lest the cold air enter. There is a heater in the room. It is better to go in and take a seat. Song Zaiqing did not decline, and both of them entered the room hand in hand. After entering the room, the maid served hot tea to both of them. Chun Rochio took the lead to take a sip of the tea and smiled at Song Zaiqing. I originally thought that since our Shin family is here, there would be a lack of sister to share the exquisiteness of the tea ceremony with me, but one was not able to find one. Now that you are here, I am very happy. Third friend's kindness. Song Zaiqing also smiled. Young Lady Qing's temperament is pleasing, and anyone would like. Chun Rochio said, I feel like old friends with you at first sight and know that you are an intelligent and elegant person. You and I are so congenial. One do not know how was the discussion with my eldest saw a few days ago? After pausing, Chun Rochio sighed again. My eldest saw is from a military family and do not know about these tea ceremonies, but is a straightforward and good person. One do not know if it scared you? These words had some meaning of probing. Song Zaiqing gently rubbed the lid of the tea and replied submissively, Everyone in physician is very good and told me many interesting things that one had never heard before. One did not avoid it because of Zaiqing's identity. Thus, Zaiqing's heart is grateful. I just knew it. Chun Rochio nodded her head. You are so sensible, and eldest Saw is also straightforward. Naturally, one would be able to get along well. Has young Lady Qing seen eldest brother before? Song Zaiqing shook her head. That day it was too late, and General Shen had not returned to the residence, so I came back first, thinking that it would not be too late to visit another day. Chun Rochio's smile deepened. It is also good to visit another day. After all, we are one family, and now we are all staying in the Ding capital. It is very convenient to do anything. Just as she was speaking, one saw a maid holding an invitation coming in from outside, and seeing that Chun Rochio was also there, she first bowed to Chun Rochio before handing the invitation to Song Zaiqing's hands. Young lady, this is the invitation that the concierge sent over. Chun Rochio's eyes flashed and smiled. Young Lady Qing had just arrived in the Ding capital not long ago and already have good friends? Now that I've sent an invitation, I wonder which family it is? Song Zaiqing opened the invitation and took a look before smiling. Third friend has misunderstood. The people that I know in the Ding capital are only the people of the Shun residence and have no friends. This invitation was sent by eldest Shinforen. Sister-in-law? Chun Rochio was surprised for a moment, and her gaze towards Song Zaiqing was a little more surprised. It seems that eldest Saw likes you very much. Originally, when eldest Saw was living in the residence, one would rarely see her send an invitation. Finishing, she seemed to be very happy for Song Zaiqing. It seems that you two really hit it off at first sight. My heart is somewhat jealous. Song Zaiqing smiled. Third foreign is teasing me again. The date of this invitation is today. Chun Rochio looked at the invitation in Song Zaiqing's hands and said in surprise, Young Lady Qing is not going over to take a look now. At present, one fear that it is somewhat too early. Song Zaiqing was somewhat hesitant. Chun Rochio smiled and patted her hands. What are you being shy about? One need to know that we are all one family, so just treat it as a visit. Moreover, with eldest Saw's temperament, if you push and pull like this, it would make her feel unhappy and unhappy. Why cause misunderstandings? Song Zaiqing looked at the invitation and Chun Rochio continued. Actually, to be honest with you, I also have some selfish motives. I was thinking that if you and eldest Saw are on good terms, in the future, it would be much easier to explain any misunderstandings with eldest brother and eldest Saw. One still need to rely on you. She sighed as she spoke. Chapter 5:16. Third foreign must not say that. Song Zaiqing quickly said, Zaiqing's heart is grateful that the Shen family took in Zaiqing. Moreover, a few days ago, I went to see eldest Shinforen, and she is a broad-minded person. One think that it is only a momentary misunderstanding. I will go and, if there is a chance, I will help to explain. Third foreign need not mention that I will do the same. Chinrochio was very pleased when she heard that. I know that you are a reasonable person. When she was speaking, she took off a bracelet from her hand and put it on Chang Ziqing's wrist. Chang Ziqing wanted to decline, but was held down by Chinrochio. Chinrochio said, "This bracelet is not worth a lot of money, but the workmanship is exquisite. I know that you are not greedy and would not accept expensive things. Keep this bracelet. Eldest brother might be in the residence today, so it would not be wrong to dress up properly to meet eldest brother and eldest Saw. One cannot let others look down on the Chang family, right? Even if one do not think for yourself, one must think for the Chang family." These words were said from the bottom of her heart, and every word and sentence were for Chang Ziqing. Chang Ziqing did not decline again, and said, "Third friend's good treatment of Ziqing. Ziqing will remember it in her heart."
What are you saying? We are all one family.
Chinrochio stood up and looked outside. "Young lady, Ziqing should tidy up first, and I will not disturb. Go out while the snow is not heavy so that one can return early at night." She then carefully instructed the two maids who were serving Chang Ziqing on some matters before walking out of the door. After Chinrochio left, Zhao Mama kept Chang Ziqing's invitation and said, "Young lady really want to go to the Shin mansion to meet that eldest Shin foreign?"
See.
Once Chinrochio left, Chang Ziqing's smile faded. Even though it was still warm and elegant, it was as if it was a different person and was not as sincere as before. That eldest Shin foreign, Zhao Mama, was somewhat hesitant. "Is a good person." Chang Ziqing sat in front of the table and opened a small box of rouge. She pursed her lips. The color of the rouge was very light, and with such a shallow layer, it was like a faint pink color coming from her lips, making her look even more charming. "He's a good person. I can rest assured now." Granny Zhao breathed a sigh of relief. Yes. Chang Ziqing looked at herself in the mirror, but one did not know if she was talking to herself or others. "I am also relieved." Outside, Chinrochio returned to Chiao Shui Yuan and held the heater in her hands before turning her head to meet Xinyu. "Mother," Xinyu said, "why do you keep running to that Chang Ziqing courtyard these few days? I've been looking for you a few times, but you've disappeared." "Why are you looking for me?" Chinrochio caressed Xinyu's head. Xinyu was getting older, and even though she had the countenance of a flower and the countenance of the moon, but her horizons were so high that it would be a problem to keep it on. One could not just leave it and become an old lady. Chinrochio knew that her daughter's heart adored Prince Ding, but how would she have the means to let Xinyu marry Fu Xiuyi? Xinyu would definitely be unwilling to be a concubine. Shenwan had been angry with Chinrochio a few times because of Xinyu's marriage. Chinrochio doted on her daughter, and when Shenwan found those high-ranking disciples, Chinrochio would think of ways to reject them. The embroidery workshop's new designs of clothes. Xinyu said, "Why don't you take a look? Which one is better?" Looking at her daughter, who was like a flower, Chinrochio felt a headache in her heart. She said, "What is the use of these flowery looks? You are already extremely beautiful. If one has the time to do these, it is better to learn from that person in the Western courtyard." Western courtyards. Xinyu was puzzled. Mother is talking about that Chang Ziqing? What is there to learn from her? Chinrochio shook her head. "There is a lot to learn. If you have 30% of her ability, then I will be assured." What kind of person was Luo Shuiyan? Even though she treated others warmly, she was not the kind of person who would send invitations to others after seeing them once. Chinrochio and Luo Shuiyan had been sisters-in-law for so many years, but it was the first time they saw such an impatient invitation. Chinrochio knew that Chang Ziqing was a person that made one feel comfortable and unable to have any hostility, but to be able to let Luo Shuiyan get close like this, it was really out of her expectations. Chapter 517. But this was a good thing for Chinrochio. She tapped Xinyu's forehead and said resentfully at iron for not becoming steel. "In short, you should learn more from her in the future." It is much more useful than looking at clothes.
In
the Shun mansion, Gui was combing Shen Miao's hair as she spoke. Young lady, to use Friend's name to send an invitation to that young lady of the Chong family. If Friend knew about it, would there be an accident? What is the relationship between using my mother's name and using my name? Shen Miao lightly said. After all, we are one family. But why did young lady not use her own name? Jingzhou was wiping the table by the side and was somewhat curious when she heard it. Shen Miao stole Luo Shuiyan's seal and wrote an invitation to be sent to the Shen residence, which made all the maids in the room drop their jaws in shock. It would have been fine if he had impersonated Luo Shuiyan to do something else, but to impersonate Luo Shuiyan to invite a lady who wasn't even close to him, he felt that it was a waste of talent. I don't have much of a relationship with her. Why would I invite her over for no reason? Jing Zhe and Gui looked at each other, and both of them did not know how to continue this. Yes, there was no friendship between Luo Shuiyan and Chong Zhaoqing, so was there a need to steal Luo Shuiyan's seal to send an invitation to Chong Zhaoqing? When Tian Zaiqing came to visit, one did not see how happy Shen Miao was. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Since Luo Shuiyan was not around today, it was better to send the invitation earlier, as she would have to meet this young lady of the Chong family alone for a while. Luo Tan was sent away early in the morning, and only Shen Miao could make decisions in the entire residence. Just as he was thinking, he heard a manservant come in from outside to report that the young miss of the Chong family had arrived. So fast. Jing Zhe was somewhat surprised. Shen Miao smiled slightly. Those who had a request naturally could not hide their ambitions no matter what. In the past, she could not see clearly because she was in the situation and did not care much about the matters of the Shen family. Now was different from the past. She wanted to see how high Chong Zaiqing's skills were. Song Zaiqing was led by the servant to the main hall of the Shen mansion to wait. The servant brought the hot tea over, and she quietly sized up the Shen mansion. The Shun mansion was different from the Shun residence. Because the Shun residence was the residence of the old general, the feng shui was very particular, and in addition to old Shin foreign's habits, it was somewhat gaudy. Perhaps it was because Shun Xian and Luo Shuiyan were martial artists in the Shin mansion. The courtyard was spacious and the furnishings in the main hall were squarish, giving one a look of awe-inspiring righteousness. Even though the ornaments were simple, one did not know why, but there was a dignified feeling. The first time Chong Zaiqing came here, she did not take a good look, but at this moment, she felt that there was a layer of sweat on her body. It was as if one could not help but sit upright in this place. The maids were minding their own business, and no one spoke to her. Song Zaiqing had always had good etiquette, and there was no reason to rush. Even after waiting for the tea to turn cold, there was no movement from outside. Chong Zaiqing pulled a maid over and asked why Luo Shuiyan had not come out yet. Did something happen? That servant girl was also all smiles, her attitude respectful and polite. She said that she would go and ask, but with a turn of her head, she disappeared without a trace. No one knew what was going on. It was like this several times in a row, and Chong Zaiqing could not sit still. The first time she saw Luo Shuiyan, she had a good grasp of the other's temperament. She had a candid temperament and was very enthusiastic when dealing with people. Why would she deliberately make things difficult for others this time? For the first time, Chong Zaiqing's heart was somewhat uncertain. The maids that were coming and going seemed to be looking at her, but also seemed to not be looking at her. She finally could not sit still and wanted to get up to leave, but heard someone laughing behind her. Qing Yi waited for a long time. Really apologize. Just now one wet one's clothes in the room and had to freshen up and was delayed for a moment. Chong Zaiqing was startled for a moment and quickly stood up, but saw a few maids following behind as Shen Miao walked in from outside the door. The young female was wearing a jade green embroidered feather cloak and had a heater in her hands. Most likely she felt warm after entering the room and took off the cloak, revealing a dark purple embroidered long coat and skirt. It was a very gorgeous and complicated pattern, but it was in such a heavy purple color. What was rare was that she did not wear it at all, and instead had an air of nobility. That dark purple color made the young female's skin as white as jade. She was petite and delicate, but it was as if she was walking in the 9 palaces. Every step she took was filled with smiles, and one's wealth gave birth to lotuses. Chang Zaiqing's mind felt dizzy for a moment. She had seen a lot of people, and had also seen a lot of females who said that they had a graceful bearing, including Xin Yu, who was held up by Chen Roqiu without batting an eyelid. But only this Xin Miao could give her a feeling of amazement. That day it was still all right when she was beside Luo Shuiyan, but today she appeared alone and directly stole all the limelight, making one feel pressured. 5th young ladies. Chang Zaiqing's gaze swept behind Xin Miao. No need to look. Shen Miao smiled gently. It was me who sent you the invitation. Chapter 5:18. It is me who sent you the invitation. Qingyi. Chang Zaiqing was startled and asked with a puzzled smile. 5th young lady is. Last time Qingyi came and left in a hurry, so I did not have a good chat with Qingyi. Qingyi said that she would come over another day, and I waited for a long time but did not see any movements from Qingyi, so I could only send the invitation myself. Fearing that my seal was not appropriate, I used my mother's seal. Qingyi would not blame me, right? Chang Zaiqing looked at the young female in front of her. She was smiling gracefully without any awkwardness at all. If one were to get entangled, it would seem that Chang Zaiqing was being calculative. Chang Zaiqing immediately smiled. How could it be? It is Chang Zaiqing's luck to be invited by 5th young lady. As she spoke, she quietly sized up Xin Miao. Last time when she returned to the Shun residence, even though Xin Miao was not cold to her, it was not considered warm, and there were even a few places where she was rude. For an inexplicable and sudden invitation, Chang Zaiqing's heart was secretly vigilant. It is very cold in the main hall. Qingyi better go to my room to sit. Shen Miao smiled as she stood up. It is not far from here. I really cannot stand the cold wind. Chang Zaiqing complied obediently. When they reached Shen Miao's room, Shen Miao let the maids serve tea and pastries. The stove was burning brightly, and a small gap was opened in the window before closing the door. The room was warm, but it was not stuffy. Shen Miao pushed the teacup in front of Chang Zaiqing. Chang Zaiqing smiled as she picked it up to take a sip, and her expression suddenly became somewhat strange. This is Zhu Dan tea. The taste is very bitter and astringent without any fragrance. Most likely Qingyi is not used to drinking it. Shen Miao smiled as she explained. Chang Zaiqing's expression slightly paused. She was somewhat puzzled by Shen Miao's actions. The way to treat a guest was naturally to bring out the best tea leaves. Why would one use such poor quality tea to treat a guest? Was it to humiliate her? But Shen Miao's expression did not seem to be like this. Although this tea is bitter, it is very good for the body. Drinking it in winter can drive away the cold and keep warm. My father and brothers are all martial artists, so they always drink vermilion pill tea in winter. Later on, the whole house drank this kind of tea. Shen Miao looked at Chang Zaiqing. Qingyi is from a scholarly family and most likely do not like to drink this kind of tea, but our military family is not so particular about it. Chang Zaiqing waved her hands and smiled. 5th young lady must be joking. The Chang family is just an ordinary family. Even though this Zhu Dan tea is bitter, it is very good to people. After drinking it for a long time, one would not feel bitter. Shen Miao shook her head. It is easy to force it for a while, but it is difficult to force it for a lifetime. Chang Zaiqing was surprised for a moment and only felt that there was more to Shen Miao's words and could not help but look at Shen Miao. Shen Miao smiled. Speaking of which, one heard that Qingyi is currently living in the Shun residence. Are the people in the Shun residence treating Qingyi well? All are very good. Chang Zaiqing smiled. They all take good care of me. You and third aunt are like-minded, so you must be very compatible. Shen Miao smiled. Third aunt has always liked to play with words, and in the beginning third Shu was very respectful towards her because of this. One think that you have also seen how well third Shu treats third aunt. In the entire third household, third aunt is the matriarch of the household. She then sighed. It is a pity that third aunt does not have a D son. If there was a D son, one need not be so worried. Song Zai-ching had stayed in the Shin residence for so long and naturally knew that because of the matter of the third household not having a son, Jin Roqiu and old Shinfern were in conflict almost every day. It was just that she did not expect that Shin Miao would actually say such words to her. Shin Miao was after all an unmarried young lady, so it was somewhat awkward to talk about the matters of the third household. However, when Shin Miao spoke, her expression was natural, as if it was not something not worth saying. This made Song Zai-ching unable to differentiate whether Shin Miao was precocious or naive. Chapter 519. Third foreign is so kind that in the future there will be many children and grandchildren. Song Zai-ching followed Shin Miao's words and said, "One always loved to compare our first household with the third household." Shin Miao picked up the teacup and blew the tea leaves on the surface before smiling. "One is civil and one is military. In the courtyard, there is only one matriarch, but our residence is still all right, as at least there is my eldest brother. My eldest brother is about to reach the age of marrying, and in a few days, one will pick a good marriage in the Ding capital for him. With a sister-in-law and a nephew, this room is considered lively." Shin Miao seemed to be somewhat proud, but in the third household, it is not as lively as our first household. Song Zai-ching first thought that Shin Miao was childish and was angry with the third household, but after listening to the complete sentence, she seemed to have thought of something and her expression changed. Correct. In Shin Xian's residence, Luo Shuiyan was stupid and direct and did not know how to use her heart. The inner courtyard was clean, and it was not difficult to tidy it up. But she almost forgot that there was still a Shin Xiu. Shin Xiu was Luo Shuiyan's eldest son and was young and promising. If he married a powerful wife, even if she did not fight for it, she would be suppressed by 3 points. Shin Miao saw the change in Song Zai-ching's expression, and her eyes became slightly cold. In the previous lifetime, Song Zai-ching finally stayed in Shin Xian's inner courtyard, and at that time Shin Xiu was already unable to make it. Shin Miao married into the residence of Prince Ding, and there was almost no one in the entire inner courtyard that could be a threat to Song Zai-ching. With such smooth sailing, how would Song Zai-ching not grasp the opportunity? But now it was different. Shin Xiu was perfectly fine, and a healthy eldest son was here. Thus the possibility of Song Zai-ching becoming a wife was forever empty. This female who liked to haggle and clearly weigh the pros and cons, what kind of path would she choose? She picked up the pastries on the table and smiled. It is really a pity for third Shu. Originally, when grandfather was still alive, he seemed to have said that third Shu was the most intelligent in the Shin family. He has a dignified appearance and is literate. If he had a son, he would definitely be as smart as him. It's a pity that there's only one woman in the third branch, second older sister. Second older sister is now at the age where she's about to get married. When second older sister gets married, there will only be third uncle and third aunt in the third branch. Song Zai-ching was originally listening absent-mindedly, but when she heard that, her heart moved. Speaking of which, the situation in Shin Xian's and Shunwan's inner courtyard was similar. Both of them only had one woman, and both of them were so-called lovers. It was just that Shin Yu was older than Shin Miao by 2 years, and Shin Yu was about to get married. It was even rarer for the third household to not have a son. Aunt Qing and third aunt's temperament is similar, and their expressions are also somewhat similar. They are both gentle and understanding, and they know a lot of elegant things. Those who don't know would think that you are a pair of sisters. Shen Miao faced Song Zai-ching's probing gaze and spoke unhurriedly, but from what I see, Qing Yi is more outstanding than third Shin because Qing Yi is younger. Song Zai-ching's lips unconsciously rose. She also knew that the people in the Shun residence compared her with Chun Roqiu. Like Chun Roqiu, they were all scholarly and delicate talented females, but what Shin Miao said was right. No matter how beautiful a female was, when they get older, even if they had great talent, their colors would wither. In comparison, Song Zai-ching was more moving. Moreover, Chen Roqiu considered herself as a daughter of a noble family, and her actions were somewhat virtuous, But Song Zai-ching grew up in a commoner's family and knew how to compromise. When it was time to lower one's head, one would lower one's head and look at others' face, thus everyone would praise her. Song Zai-ching's gaze was deep as she thought that she was stronger than Chen Ruoqiu. Shen Miao picked up the tea to drink. The taste of the tea was astringent, but she drank it like honey and revealed a warm smile. Chapter 5:20. Song Zai-ching was already 26 years old, and for females of this age in the Ding capital, when talking about marriage, most of them would be the second wife of others and still have to raise up a child that did not crawl out of her stomach, making it difficult for a stepmother. Moreover, the Chong family was from a small family. Even if they relied on the name of the Shin family, it would be difficult for them to marry into a noble family. This Chong Zai-ching abandoned her husband and son to seek a better life, so how would it be that easy to satisfy? Originally, it was just that she did not discover Xinhuan, but since Song Zai-ching was best at weighing the pros and cons, Shen Miao would directly spread out the loopholes that Song Zai-ching could find in the third household and let Song Zai-ching make her own choice. Song Zai-ching's expression was fluctuating and her heart was in a mess. Shen Miao's suggestion evoked another thought in her mind, and some things that she had not discovered before came to her mind. That's right. Since Shanwan liked Chen Ruoqiu's temperament, and she was better than Chen Ruoqiu in every aspect, how could Shanwan not like her? Compared to Shen Xian, who was a martial artist, Shanwan was a modest gentleman and still had his grace, which made her feel more at ease. But how did today's matter suddenly become like this? She originally wanted to listen to Chen Ruoqiu's words to test Shen Xian. She originally had her eyes on Shen Xian, but in the end, why did she turn to deal with Chen Ruoqiu? It was because Shen Miao kept talking about irrelevant things that distracted her. It was Shen Miao. Shen Miao? Song Zai-ching suddenly looked at Shen Miao. The purple-clothed girl sat in front of the window. The snow outside had already stopped. The sun came out and shone on the side of her face, which was as white as jade. Her neck was slender. She held the teacup in her hand and slowly sipped on it. However, there was a kind of undetectable majesty to it. Song Zai-ching shuddered. It was as if she had just realized that from the beginning till now, she was the one who was led by the nose by Shen Miao. Shen Miao hammered to the east and hammered to the west. She seemed to be speaking casually, but with a few words, she had directly led the clues to Chen Ruoqiu. Shen Miao's every sentence made Song Zai-ching think of the third household. This girl was definitely not stupid or naive, but more like a monster. When Song Zai-ching thought of the first time she came to the Shen mansion, Shen Miao was rude a few times and her heart kept on jumping. Could it be that at that time Shen Miao already knew what she was planning, so the rude things were actually intentional? Was this the reason why he invited her here today? Shen Miao looked at her and smiled. Aunt Qing, why are you sweating? Do you feel hot in the room? Song Zai-ching suddenly recovered to her senses and looked at Shen Miao with 120% of her attention before smiling. Most likely, Shen Miao lightly said, if the windows are closed too tightly, the room would be as uncomfortable as spinning a cocoon around itself. It is better to open the windows as it is much cooler outside. She instructed Jingzhi to open the windows before looking at Song Zai-ching. Qingyi, am I right? Fifth young lady is right. Song Zai-ching forced a smile and looked at Shen Miao's smile with some fear. Her thoughts were hidden so deeply, but Shen Miao only saw her once and understood what she was thinking in her heart. Such a person was a monster, a graceful bearing. Song Zai-ching rejoiced that she discovered it early. If she really entered Shen Xian's inner courtyard, Song Zai-ching really did not have the confidence to deal with such a monster. Shen Miao smiled without a care. She had clearly told Song Zai-ching that if one wanted to enter her father's courtyard, one must first see if one could deal with her. If one could not, then one would treat it as dying here. One feared that one's path back would be sealed, and one would see who was spinning a cocoon around themselves. Song Zai-ching would not take risks, as she had always found the most advantageous and safest way. Sure enough, after speaking with Song Zai-ching for a short while, Song Zai-ching said that she wanted to leave. Naturally, Shin Miao would not keep her, and after Song Zaiqing left, Guyu asked curiously, "Why is that young lady of the Chong family acting strangely, like she was hiding from something? Who scared her?" Chapter 521. Shen Miao said, "Instruct the servants not to mention today's matter to anyone." Chong Zaiqing did not come to the Shin mansion. Remember this. The two maids complied and left the door. Even though they did not understand why Shin Miao would care so much about Chong Zhaoqing, but Shin Miao had her own reasons for doing things, so the maids would not say anything. After everyone left, Shin Miao then sat at the table and looked at the bronze mirror absent-mindedly. To let Chong Zaiqing harm Chen Roqiu was because Chen Roqiu was really hateful and had been jumping around for too long. In the previous lifetime, Song Zaiqing and Shen Xian's marriage certificate was accidentally discovered by Chen Roqiu. It was Chen Roqiu who kept on saying that Chong Zaiqing should not be wronged and wanted to seek an explanation for Chong Zaiqing. Shin Miao thought that one feared that in the previous lifetime, Song Zaiqing's eyes finally turned towards Shen Xian, and it might not be, without Chen Roqiu adding fuel to the fire. Since they were twin sisters and good sisters, there was no harm in putting them together to compete in beauty. To see who exactly did Shen one like, Shen Miao's eyes became slightly cold. Throwing Chen Roqiu to Chong Zaiqing to deal with naturally made her happy and relaxed. But Chong Zaiqing would not let it go easily. It is just that. Shen Miao frowned. What did Chong Zaiqing do in the past lifetime that Luo Shui Yan would end up like a fragrant jade? Until now, she was still a mystery. Because of Song Zaiqing's matter, Shen Miao had been fussing about it for the entire day, and when the family was eating at night, she was thinking about the matter. Everyone saw that she was preoccupied, and Shen Miao excused herself by saying that she was somewhat tired. Luo Shui Yan got someone to make some sweet milk soup for Shen Miao and let her rest early. Lying on the bed, Jingzhe and Guyu tucked her in and blew out the lamp. After putting down the curtains on the bed, Shen Miao closed her eyes. The sky darkened, and her breathing gradually calmed down. The dark night shrouded the entire Ding capital, and Shen Miao's body floated lightly. The sun outside suddenly brightened. She opened her eyes and felt that it was a little dazzling. The air seemed to have become a little hot, like it was summer. It was supposed to be early winter, so how could it be summer? Shen Miao sat up and felt a strange headache. When she looked down, she discovered that she was sitting on the soft couch in the room. A woman's voice came from the inner room. An extremely bitter medicinal smell wafted out from within. The medicinal fragrance was actually somewhat familiar. Shen Miao stood up. There was not a single maid in the room, and the voice of the woman inside was getting clearer. She thought for a moment, then went into the house to take a look. In the spacious room, the windows were tightly shut. The weather was already very hot, and with the windows tightly shut, it was almost suffocating. Coupled with the irritating bitter smell of medicine, it was as if something was stuck in his chest, making him feel strangely stuffy. Shen Miao walked a few steps and wanted to close the window, but she heard someone saying, "Go and open the window. My heart is so stuffy." Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. The female lying on the bed had a haggard face and was wearing a dark apricot-colored cotton gown. Most likely it was because it was too hot that her hair was soaked in sweat, and the clothes on her chest were mostly drenched in sweat. Her face was ashen, and there was a look of death in her eyes. Shen Miao's eyes widened. That was Luo Shui Yan. When had Luo Shui Yan ever looked so haggard? It is better for older sister to lie down properly. The female sitting by the bed comforted. It would not be good if one were to catch a cold in this kind of weather. Shen Miao turned her head to look at that female. Her light green clothes were simple, but the material was expensive. The refreshing and refined dressing was of a good age and was a sharp contrast with the lifeless Luo Shui Yan. If this person was not Chong Zaiqing, who else could it be? At this moment Chong Zaiqing was holding the female's hair bun and holding Luo Shui Yan's hand. Older sister still have to get better. Chapter 5:22. I cannot do it anymore. Luo Shuiyan's breath was like silk and there was no more vitality in her eyes. My child is gone, and there is no hope. So what if the days are peaceful, wasting these medicinal herbs for no reason? Older sister must not say that. Chang Ziqing said, if fifth young lady knew that you are thinking like this, one do not know how sad her heart would be. Jiao Jiao. Luo Shuiyan's eyes were in pain. Shen Miao took a step forward and wanted to hold Luo Shuiyan's hands but passed through Luo Shuiyan's hands.
It was as if she did not exist.
Jiao Jiao hates me. Luo Shuiyan closed her eyes. But what can I do? The Shen family cannot be tied together with Prince Ding. Prince Ding can hide from Jiao Jiao, but not me. Jiao Jiao now even hates me and Xian and is not even willing to see me. With Prince Ding's current actions, what would Jiao Jiao do in the future?
There is no way out.
The more she spoke, the more painful her heart became. Suddenly, she used a handkerchief to cover her mouth and coughed violently a few times. When she opened the handkerchief again, there were dark red bloodstains on it. Older sister, do not think about it. Chang Ziqing supported her and comforted. Fifth young lady is only thinking wrongly for a moment. Perhaps His Highness Prince Ding really treats her well. Moreover, there is no overnight hatred between parents and children. Fifth young lady will understand in the future that this hatred is only temporary. Shen Miao glared at Chang Ziqing. Chang Ziqing's words seemed to be comforting, but in fact it was adding oil to the fire as it confirmed that Shen Miao hated Luo Shuiyan. In the past life when she married Fu Xiaoyi, even though she wanted the Shen family to help but Fu Xian was not willing, thus there was some resentment, but it was not worthwhile to say that she hated. Now that Luo Shuiyan was on her last breath, how would she not be distressed when she heard Shen Miao hate her? Shen Miao's eyes blurred for a moment before she saw Chang Ziqing's opposite. There was a female wearing a golden embroidered autumn dress sitting on a chair with an impatient expression. The woman was also young. She had delicate features, but she wore heavy makeup, which made her look a little strange. Shen Miao opened her mouth. Who else could it be if it was not her? Chang Ziqing smiled. Fifth young lady must not be angry with foreign. It is just a matter of military strength, and it is very important. The general and elder sister probably have their own considerations. That's why they're doing this. We are all one family. Since I have married into the residence of Prince Ding is also half a Shen family. Why would father and mother treat him like an outsider? I know that father and mother did not like me since young, so they left me in the Ding capital and even implicated your highness. Chang Ziqing smiled again. What is fifth young lady saying? Even though the general and older sister are not as close to young lady as eldest young master, but blood is thicker than water. I do not care. The young Shen Miao said arrogantly. It is said that Qing Yinyang is the most intelligent. Can you think of a way for me? Let father and mother agree to lend troops to your highness? Chang Ziqing seemed to be in a difficult position and said after a moment, since fifth young lady is Foreign's biological daughter, Foreign would definitely love fifth young lady. Not to mention anything else. If fifth miss were to complain to madam, perhaps madam would agree to fifth miss's conditions. If it is really not possible, one can be like that young child and make a fuss. She smiled, but these are all my nonsense. Fifth young lady should reconsider. Shen Miao, who was watching at the side, was already livid with anger. How was Chang Ziqing mediating? This was clearly instigating. Shen Miao recalled that in the previous lifetime, Luo Shuiyan did not tell anyone about her miscarriage. She wanted to wait until the fetus was stable before spreading it out, but who knew that there was a change in the middle? Coincidentally, Prince Ding wanted to borrow troops from Shen Xian, but Shen Xian was naturally not willing. Shen Miao looked for Chang Ziqing to complain, so Chang Ziqing led her to speak and let her be angry with Luo Shuiyan. Chapter 5:23. Shen Miao did not know that Luo Shuiyan had an abortion at that time and passed away. Perhaps at that time Shen Miao thought it was some ordinary words, but at Luo Shuiyan's most vulnerable time, it was tantamount to ending Luo Shuiyan's life. In Luo Shuiyan's view, what did Shen Miao mean when she said that she hated her? No mother would want their child to hate themselves. And at the same time when Shen Miao stabbed Luo Shuiyan, she also said some ambiguous words about how Prince Ding did not treat her well, making Luo Shuiyan worried. With overthinking and Shen Xian not being in the Ding capital, Luo Shuiyan had to be distressed and worried. Losing a son one after another, no matter how stone-hearted one would not be able to withstand this blow. Shen Miao could not wait to rush up and grab the hypocritical smile on Chang Ziqing's face. The scenery flashed, and one actually arrived at another courtyard. That courtyard was renovated very elegantly. Chang Ziqing was wearing an emerald green long dress, and the maid beside her was slowly fanning her. The summer wind was hot, but the fan was soaked in ice, thus the wind was very cool. One heard that foreign will not be able to last much longer. The mama beside Chang Ziqing said, the physician said that it would be around these few days. Let the servants serve better. Chang Ziqing said, do not let others talk. The mama complied and said, Enyang finally managed to endure. Yes. Chang Ziqing picked up the purple grapes in the jar to eat. After so many years, one finally managed to endure. It is just that one do not know about master's side. The general deeply loves older sister and naturally would be sad. Chang Ziqing gently smiled. But what does this have to do with me? I only need to sit in the position of the only mistress in the eldest household. The general does not recognize me, but the servants recognize me. The mama also nodded her head. Enyang is right. Originally one thought that foreign would be able to hold on a little longer, and did not think that it would be so fast. Heart is broken and worried all day long. It is already considered that she has a long life to endure till now. Chang Ziqing lightly said, Luo Shuiyan was born with a good life to marry into such a good family, and there were no other females in the courtyard. Unfortunately, to give birth to a daughter like Shen Miao, it ruined her good luck. Shen Miao was startled for a moment, and heard Chang Ziqing speaking again. Believe whatever that is said. His Highness Prince Ding's methods are indeed very high to make Shen Miao dead set on him. Even father and mother are not wanted. But if it was not that Shen Miao was stupid, how would I be able to have good luck? Shen Miao stood opposite Chang Ziqing. It was a hot summer day, but her heart was like an ice house. Shen Miao did not even know that the New Year's gifts and food that Shen Miao sent from Prince Ding's residence were all tampered with. She herself was stupid, but Luo Shuiyan doted on her so much that she ate all the medicinal meals. However, he did not know that his daughter had sent him poison. You also saw it that day, when Shen Miao fed Luo Shuiyan the medicine. Spoonful by spoonful, it was all poison, but Luo Shuiyan was still filled with joy. Shen Miao's body trembled and almost fell down. At that time, in order to help Fu Xiuyi to convince Shen Xian, she wanted to please Luo Shuiyan, so she ordered people to buy medicinal herbs and learn how to make medicinal cuisine and return to the Shen residence to cook it for Luo Shuiyan to eat. Luo Shuiyan had always felt that Shen Miao treated her coldly, so when she was suddenly warm, she was naturally very happy and ate everything without leaving a single spoonful. So it turned out that those things were tampered with. Luo Shuiyan would not suspect that her own daughter would harm people, but Shen Miao did not think that at that time, the people around her already had the opportunity. She suddenly felt very cold, and her mind was in a mess. From an onlooker's point of view, she was so vicious and stupid that she did not even have the qualifications to be forgiven. It was she who personally pushed her own mother into the road to the Yellow Springs. She was the most unfilial person. Luo Shuiyan had been strong for a lifetime, but was defeated in her own daughter's hands. Speaking of which, I want to thank Shen Miao. Chang Ziqing smiled comfortably. She gave her mother's fate to me with both hands. From now on, I have the final say in the Shen family's inner courtyard. Luo Shuiyan did not lose anything in this lifetime, and if one were to talk about the biggest mistake she made, it would most likely be giving birth to Shen Miao. Shen Miao is indeed a harmful person. Suddenly, there were maids rushing over from a distance, and their shadows were pulled into a long line under the summer sun. That voice was also sluggish and had beads of sweat on it. They said, "Chang Inyang, Foreign just breathed her last. Foreign is gone. Foreign is gone." There was a rumble of thunder as it spread out between heaven and earth, lighting up the Ding capital in the night. The sound of the rain and the thunder and lightning completely covered up the cries of the people in the room. Shun Miao's face was full of tears as she screamed, "Mother, mother, it is my fault. It is my fault. I should not like Fu Xiuyi. I will not like him anymore. It is my fault. It is my fault. Mother." At the side of the bed, the winter's thunder shone on her pale face, making her look as miserable and desperate as a ghost. The purple-clad youth stood at the side of the bed and stared at Shin Miao with a complicated expression as she kept struggling in the nightmare. After a moment, the person finally sighed slightly and stretched out his hand. Chapter 524. That was an extremely terrifying dream, as if all the struggles were futile. She knew that the ending would be extremely tragic, but she was unable to stop it from happening and could only watch as everything reached an irreversible stage. She was a murderer. There was a rumble of thunder. It was the early winter weather, but there was actually such lightning. Shun Miao sat up quietly in her dream and gasped for breath. Her hands unconsciously grabbed onto something and felt that someone was gently patting her back. The strength of that hand was gentle and had a reassuring strength. She leaned in the other person's embrace and grabbed her neck. She only felt that her face was full of sweat and she was almost out of breath. That person had a good temper and allowed her to curl up. He paused for a moment before reaching out to the back of Shin Miao's head and pressed her into his embrace. Shin Miao's body trembled so much that she bit his shoulder. His body trembled, but he did not move and only patted Shin Miao's head soothingly. One did not know how much time had passed before the thunder gradually subsided, and only the pitter-patter of rain could be heard from outside the window into the room. Shin Miao's heart gradually calmed down, and she released her mouth. The tip of her nose touched something cold, and it was a golden button. It was an extremely intimate posture with the other person. She slowly sat up from that person's embrace. The latter got up, and after a moment, the room was lit up. Someone placed the oil lamp on the small table in front of the couch and walked to the side of the couch to sit down. His brows were deep and handsome, as usual elegant and noble. If it was not Xie Jingxing, who else could it be? Under the light of the lantern, his gaze was less cynical than it was in the past. It was more comforting, and there was a faint hint of concern. Shin Miao's heart shrank. She was addicted to a terrible nightmare and could not wake up. That dream was not only like a dream, it was as if it really happened. She was bewildered by the terrible truth and momentarily lost her composure. Touching something warm was like a drowning person grabbing onto a life-saving straw and would not let go. But she had forgotten that in the middle of the night, the other person's arrival was a matter worth pondering over. The secret that she had always locked up seemed to have a crack at this moment, and she was facing the most astute hunter. Xie Jingxing's eyes were like torches, and one feared that he would be able to guess something from just a few words. "What did you dream about?" Xie Jingxing cut off the excess wick in the oil lamp. Even such a simple action, when done by him, looked like a perfect silhouette under the lamp, pleasing to the eye. "It is only a nightmare," Shin Miao said as her eyes hung down. However, her voice was still unnatural for a moment. Xie Jingxing paused and turned to look at her. "You also have times when you are afraid." Anger suddenly rose in Shin Miao's heart as she said, "I am not your highness Prince Rui, and it is already hard to survive in this world. Naturally, there would be times when one is afraid." Xie Jingxing looked at him. His eyes were very beautiful, and the shape was the most beautiful peach blossom eyes. Usually, he was a bit frivolous and a bit serious, making it hard for people to tell if he was sincere or not, but it could also make women drown in his moving eyes. But now that he was facing Shin Miao, his pair of eyes were like the autumn waters, as deep as black jade, making it hard for one to detect the emotions within. He said, Don't be afraid. It's just a dream. Shen Miao's nose turned sour, and an incomparable sadness suddenly emerged in her heart. She self-admitted that she had experienced a rebirth and that her emotions were extremely well controlled. There were times when hate and love could not be concealed, but after a short outburst, it would be cleaned up by her. However, this dream tonight made her suddenly unable to face it. Perhaps it was because the rain was too cold tonight, or perhaps it was because Xie Jingxing's gaze was too gentle. It made her cold and hard heart become weak, and wanted to find a place to cry out loud. Chapter 5:25. She felt a blur in front of her eyes, and something was on her face. When she looked up, Xie Jingxing was holding a handkerchief and was wiping her tears. She finally cried out. That youth's hands were slender and with his head slightly bent. The movements of his hands were very gentle and his eyes were very serious, as if he was doing the most delicate thing in the world. Long eyelashes drooped down, and he was already as handsome as a painting. Without the indifference and naughtiness of the day, he was like the most gentle couple, like an elder brother, and also like a friend. Shen Miao was somewhat absent-minded. Until Xie Jingxing finished wiping and saw her gaze, he raised his eyebrows. Not crying anymore? She shifted her gaze. Many thanks. This time the thanks was finally not as dry and sarcastic as before. It was the first time such a gentle tone was used. Xie Jingxing also looked at her with some surprise before his lips hooked up into a smile and touched her head. What did you dream of? You keep saying that it is Shunforen. Where did you do wrong? Shen Miao was startled and looked at Xie Jingxing. What did I say in my dream? Xie Jingxing muttered to himself for a moment before saying, Say that Shinforen you are wrong, and say sorry to Shinforen. He asked thoughtfully, What mistake did you make in your dream? It was so serious. When Shen Miao heard it, she was relieved and said perfunctorily, Nothing much. It was just a dream. She did not know that her relieved look was seen by Xie Jingxing's fingers slightly bent.
But
Shen Miao suddenly thought of something and looked at him. It is so late. Why did you come over? Even Shen Miao herself did not realize that she was already used to Xie Jingxing barging into others' boudoir in the middle of the night. At this moment there was no anger in her question, as if it was a very ordinary matter. Xie Jingxing took out a letter from his sleeves, originally intended to give you a gift. Shen Miao looked at him inexplicably before taking the letter and was surprised when she saw it. The densely packed things in the letter were not other than Chang Ziqing's matters in the Lu province, including the fact that Chang Ziqing had a husband and son that she abandoned. These secrets were all Chang Ziqing's secrets. She was surprised for a moment, but it was not because of the contents of the letter, but because Xie Jingxing would give it to her. You don't seem surprised. Xie Jingxing tilted his head and looked at her. You already knew? It is still thanking Prince Rui's good intentions. Shen Miao kept the letter. Prince Rui must not intervene in this matter. I will do it myself. Xie Jingxing looked at her for a while before shaking his head and smiling. It is this prince who is nosy. Shen Miao was silent for a while and did not know why, but she felt that the room was somewhat cramped. She lowered her head, and her eyes unconsciously landed on the corner of Xie Jingxing's robe by the side of the bed. The material was very gorgeous, and the golden embroidery was exquisite. It was as if she could feel Xie Jingxing's probing gaze on her. Shen Miao raised her head and tried to look at him calmly. If there is nothing, you can go back. Xie Jingxing stared at her. Shen Miao frowned slightly. This person had pulled her out of her nightmare, so she should indeed thank him. But what kind of person was Xie Jingxing? One would be able to see the general trend from the small clues. The longer one stayed with him, one feared that one would be eaten up until there was nothing left. Shen Miao did not want her secret to be exposed in front of others. Moreover, Xie Jingxing's identity was so sensitive. Even if Xie Jingxing did not show any hostility towards her, Shen Miao did not dare to be too assured. Xie Jingxing said, The rain is so heavy, and you let me leave. The rain outside the window was accompanied by the fading thunder, as if it would not stop for the entire night. Shen Miao was so angry by his words that she almost forgot the heartache just now and said, "Could it be that Prince Rue still wants to stay the night here?" Chapter 5:26. Xie Jingxing's eyebrows moved. "Good idea." "Xie Jingxing." Shen Miao cried out. "You call me by my Xiao name smoothly." Xie Jingxing stuffed the handkerchief that he used to wipe Shen Miao's tears into her hands. "Sleep. I will leave once the rain stops." Shen Miao was so exasperated that the charming atmosphere in the room disappeared in an instant. How would there be a young lady sleeping with a strange male watching over her? What kind of shameful matter was this? Xie Jingxing did such unruly things all day long. "With Prince Rue here, I cannot sleep." Shen Miao looked at him expressionlessly. With Xie Jingxing's interruption, the depression that she had because of Tsang Zaiqing dissipated by a lot, and even her face relaxed a lot. Xie Jingxing reached out to lift her chin and forced Shen Miao to stare at his eyes as he said slowly, "Look clearly. This prince is of royal blood and has the aura of a true dragon. With this prince staying in your room, demons and monsters would not dare to come, so you would not have nightmares." Shen Miao laughed instead of getting angry and broke free from his hand. "So to say, I should still thank Prince Rue."
Correct.
Shen Miao glared at Xie Jingxing, but her mood gradually relaxed. Xie Jingxing did not ask her anything else, and no matter if Xie Jingxing really did not guess it or pretended not to ask, it made her feel that she had escaped a calamity. Now she did not have any energy to deal with other people, and Xie Jingxing did not say anything but help. Just like this kind of sarcasm, it was insignificant. Xie Jingxing walked to the window and pulled it open to prevent the rain from coming in. He walked to the table not far from the couch and sat down. He casually picked up a book and looked like he was going to sit down and read. He did not even turn his head back as he said, "With this prince here, you can rest assured and sleep." Shen Miao moved her lips and wanted to say something, but in the end, she did not say anything. The wind and rain outside were cold, and the lightning was frightening. She wrapped herself in the bedding and only her head was exposed, but her eyes unconsciously looked at the person at the table. Even when the youth was sitting, his posture was slender and tall. He was casually flipping through the book, but had a very serious look. Looking from the side, he was really handsome. Under the pale yellow light, his whole person seemed to be gentler. Without the frivolous past, the current Xie Jingxing seemed calm and gentle. His figure seemed to be able to cover all the wind and rain. Even if he didn't say anything, he could give people a sense of trust. He was a schemer, cold and ruthless. He deceived the world, but he also had the decisiveness to cut off all means of retreat. Fooling the royal family, replacing the pillar with the beam. On the surface, he seemed to be cynical, but with a flip of his hand, he was able to summon clouds and rain with a turn of his hand. He wasn't a good person, but he wasn't as heartless as he thought. Shen Miao's mood, in the wind and rain outside, that little bit of sorrow and pain seemed to be covered under the light of the lamp as she slowly closed her eyes. The pitter-patter of rain finally stopped after a long time. There was only a little flame left in the oil lamp on the table. The flame swayed slightly, and it looked like it was about to go out. The purple-clothed youth in front of the table closed the book in his hand, stood up, and walked to the side of the bed. On the bed, the girl slept peacefully and breathed evenly. Her long hair was spread on the pillow, and when she closed her eyes, she did not have the usual dignified look. Instead, there was a bit more tranquility, which made her look even more childish. She was actually only 16 years old, and was still a young girl. In an ordinary family, a 16-year-old young girl would most likely be thinking about which family's youth was better looking or which family's perfume bag was more fragrant. Xie Jingxing's gaze was somewhat complicated. From the first time he saw Shen Miao had just reached a marriageable age, and what she displayed was a shrewdness that was completely different from her age. It was shrewdness and not calmness. The situation that the Shun family was facing was very complicated, but she never seemed to panic. She would counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir, as if she had long expected it. Chapter 5:27. However, she was after all a young lady, just like her little name. Shun Jiao Jiao should have been pampered to grow up, but she had to be forced to grow up. Never showing weakness did not mean that there was no weakness. For example, just now, when she woke up from a nightmare, the despair in her eyes was enough to shock one. She grabbed onto his clothes, and her entire body was trembling, as if she had experienced a huge horror, but in an instant, she returned to her usual dignified appearance. They were like wounded beasts that had to show off their strength at all times, because once their wounds were discovered by their enemies, they would be mercilessly slaughtered without holding back. Xie Jingxing was confused. He was not a good person and had a ruthlessness that ordinary people did not have, but every time he faced Shen Miao, he would always leave some leeway. From the first time he saw Shen Miao, in fact his attitude was one of concession. He was letting her, but he did not know what was the reason. It was as if he deliberately said that the rain did not stop, just to watch her sleep. She was obviously very afraid but still wanted to be brave, so he could only pretend that he did not know. When the rain stopped, he tucked the cup in for Shen Miao and put down the curtain before leaving the room. On the bed, Shen Miao's eyelashes slightly moved, but she did not open her eyes. The residence that was separated by a wall from the Shen mansion had now been bought by Prince Rui. Xie Jingxing walked out from inside, and Tai Yi and Nanqi, who were waiting outside, quickly followed. The invitation from the palace has been accepted again, Xie Jingxing said. Tai Yi was surprised for a moment. Did not Master say not to go? Changed mind. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at him. Tai Yi quickly agreed, but his heart was filled with doubts. That invitation was sent by a few princes in the palace. Xie Jingxing did not want to get involved with the princes of Mingqi and the crown prince of the Great Qin, so he directly rejected it. Why did he suddenly think of it now? Tai Yi carefully looked at his master and only felt that Xie Jingxing's eyes were filled with coldness, and his heart was even more puzzled. Xie Jingxing's eyes were slightly cold. In Shen Miao's dream, not only Luo Shuiyan's name was called Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi was also called. Don't like Fu Xiuyi anymore. A mocking smile suddenly appeared on the corners of his mouth. The word liked was always an eyesore to others. The thunder and winter in the Ding capital made the second day quickly turn cold. It was as if winter had arrived overnight. Everyone was talking about the heavy rain last night, which was rather abrupt. One did not expect that the rain would come so suddenly and had forgotten about the flowers and plants in the courtyard. When the painting was about to start, a few pots were broken. Those flowers were usually carefully taken care of, so it is such a pity. Chen Roqiu was helping Shen Wan tidy up his clothes as she talked about the heavy rain last night. Chen Roqiu had always been particular about elegance, and even those flowers and grasses were of rare species. Shen Wan listened absent-mindedly, but did not look at Chen Roqiu. Chen Roqiu noticed Shen Wan's expression and asked with a smile, "Does Master have something on your mind?" Shen Wan recovered to his senses and looked at Chen Roqiu. "I was thinking that Yuer is now at the age of marriage." Chen Roqiu's heart thumped, but she smiled. "I know. I have been looking for a suitable family for Yuer, but this family has to be picked slowly. One cannot blindly marry Yuer over, and Master will also feel heartache. One I've already been looking for so long." This time Shen Wan was not brushed off by Chen Roqiu as he said with a straight face, "Ever since Yuer turned 16, it has been a full 2 years. Even if the young ladies of other families were not married, they were already settled. If Yuer continued to drag on like this, it would be difficult to find a suitable family in the future. The few families that I gave you a few days ago are all not bad. I have seen that the families are well matched and there are not many worries in the residence. Yuer would not suffer a loss if she were to marry over." Chapter 5:28. Even so, Chen Roqiu forced a smile. It is just that in this short period of time, one must let Yuer familiarize with it. It's been 2 years. Every time I talk to her about family, she always refuses. Shunwan's gaze was sharp as he said, even though our residence is not bad, but Yuer's ambitions are too high. If we have any ideas that we shouldn't have and lose our entire branch, then the gains won't make up for the losses. Shunwan's gaze was meaningful, and Chunro Chio's heart jumped. Shunwan was not a fool, and since Xinyu did not marry this or that all day long as a father, he would naturally have doubts. The person that Xinyu admired was Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi. If Xinwan knew about it, one feared that he would not spare Xinyu. Some people are not people that we can climb up to. Shunwan's words had a hidden meaning. It is better to let Yuer's feet be on the ground and cut off any thoughts that she should not have as early as possible. Otherwise, it'll be too late to get out of this deep hole. Chunro Chio broke out in cold sweat. After being husband and wife with Shunwan for so many years, at this moment, she could almost conclude that Shunwan definitely knew about Xinyu's thoughts. But Chunro Chio was very clear of Xinyu's temperament. In the beginning, when Xun Miao was still around, Xinyu's heart was on Prince Ding. Now that Xun Miao was gone, one fear that Xinyu would not give up to marry Xinyu to others, one fear that Xinyu would not agree even if she died. But Master, Chunro Chio still wanted to fight for Xinyu. Wer is still young, and some matters cannot be rushed. You used to love her dearly. Can't you be more understanding this time? Xinwan took a deep breath and looked at Chunro Chio with some disappointment in his eyes. He said, Madam has always seen the big picture. Why can't you see it clearly until now? Prince Ding was not as simple as he looked on the surface. In the past, when the first household was still around, the Xin family held the military power, and perhaps Prince Ding had some scruples. Now that the first household has separated from the family, second older brother and I are both civil officials and have smooth careers, so Prince Ding would not pay much attention to us. When Prince Ding married, he would definitely marry a wife that was beneficial to his clan. You didn't mean much to him, so how could he let you, be his wife? At most, she would be a concubine. Even if Yuer won his favor, how could a side concubine compete with the main wife with such a huge background? At that time, the one who will suffer is still Yuer. When Chunro Chio heard it, she broke out in cold sweat. She originally thought that Shunwan did not approve of Xinyu marrying Prince Ding because in the fight for the throne, he was not optimistic about Prince Ding. But now it seemed that Shunwan's evaluation of Prince Ding was not that of an ordinary man, but one who knew how to weigh the pros and cons. It was difficult for such a man to have sincerity. Even if he had sincerity, Chunro Chio was not willing to watch her daughter being subservient to other women. She said, So that's how it is. It was I who didn't think it through. Master is always thinking of you, yet I still blame Master. It's all this concubine's fault. I don't blame you either. Shunwan sighed. Yuer's current temperament is more arrogant and willful than before. You have to let her tidy herself up properly so that there won't be more trouble in the future. I've already ordered my subordinates to compile the names of the disciples from the good families in the capital into a booklet. I'll have someone send it to you later. Pick some of them and let Yuer meet them another day. After a pause, he said, This matter really cannot be dragged on. Chunro Chio just got to know of the matter, and this time she stood on the same side as Shunwan, thus she immediately agreed. After Shunwan went to court, the booklet was sent back. Chunro Chio carefully counted them, and if she felt that it was suitable, she would make a mark. She actually really intended to let Xinyu meet them. But she did not see that in Qiu Shui Yuan, among the maids who were sweeping the courtyard, there were some who quietly put down the work in their hands and went out. Chapter 529. The brush in Xinyu's hand suddenly paused and a long ink mark instantly appeared on the unfinished painting. The painting was originally a beautiful autumn scenery, but an ink mark suddenly appeared in the blue sky. But she did not take it to heart and instead questioned the maid in front of her in a flustered and exasperated manner. What did you say? Mother is going to choose a husband for me? Replying to second young lady. That maid lowered her head and said carefully, Furan had already selected a few people from the list and sent someone to send the invitation, thinking that in a few days' time, second young lady would come along to visit. Shameful. Shin Yu threw the brush down in a flustered and exasperated manner. One did not know who she was scolding. Her original gentle and elegant appearance was now gone, and the surrounding maids did not dare to breathe loudly. Everyone knew that this second young lady looked gentle and weak, but would not show any mercy when dealing with servants that she could not stand. Shin Yu revealed an irritated look. She was now 18 years old. At 18 years of age, she could marry in the Ding capital, and even if she was not married, she would have already settled down with someone. But until now she had not betrothed to anyone. She was a talented female with unlimited talent and good looks. She had a gentle and intelligent temperament, and there were countless males that liked her, but she only wanted to marry one person, and that was Fu Xiaoyi. Prince Ding Fu Xiaoyi was the youngest among the princes, and also the one that had not married a consort. In the beginning, Shen Miao fell in love with Fu Xiaoyi at first sight and was bewitched by Fu Xiaoyi's charm. How would one know that Shen Yu was not the same? Perhaps that kind of male was born to dazzle others. He did not have the eccentric temperament of the princes and was young and handsome. He was of noble descent and was most probably the most distinguished male in Mingqi other than the emperor. Shen Yu had always felt that only she was worthy of Fu Xiaoyi. So at the beginning, when Shen Miao shamelessly announced her love for Fu Xiaoyi to the public, Shen Yu felt that Shen Miao was insulting her own sweetheart. Fortunately, Fu Xiaoyi was extremely cold to Shen Miao, and until now, there was nothing between Shen Miao and Fu Xiaoyi which made Shen Yu sigh in relief. In the beginning, she eavesdropped on Shen Wan and Shen Gui's conversation and said that it was possible that Fu Xiaoyi married Shen Miao in order to obtain Shen Xian's military power. She was uneasy for a long time and wished that Shen Miao did not exist in this world. Fortunately, Shen Miao gave up on her own. Now that there was no Shen Miao to compete with her, why did her own parents come to force her? I'm going to tell my mother that I'm not getting married. I will not marry. Shen Yu stood up and randomly swept the brush, ink, paper, and inkstone on the table. It was obvious that she was very angry. The surrounding maids quickly knelt on the ground, but no one dared to dissuade her. On the other side, someone in Kaiyun Court also heard the commotion. Kaiyun Court was much more desolate than it had been 2 years ago. Ever since Ren Wanyun's death, Shen Gui had hurt the roots of his descendants. Old Shen Foran was furious and did not allow Shen Gui to bring any messy females back to the residence. Shen Gui smashed a broken pot and knew that he would no longer be able to have children with females in this lifetime. When he returned to the residence and looked at the courtyard, he felt annoyed and simply wandered to the brothel every day. Other than the servants, there were only Wan Yinyang and Shen Dongling left in Kaiyun Court. Shen Gui once had 2 sons, and compared to the third household, it could be considered as having a flourishing number of heirs, but unfortunately, there was only a Shu daughter left. In any case, Shen Dongling was Shen Gui's only bloodline, thus the servants started to respect Shen Dongling and Wan Yinyang. What's all that noise out there? Wan Yinyang, who was doing needlework, raised her head. These 2 years she had been living well, and as compared to the yes-man in the past, she looked much more unyielding. The young maid at the door said, replying to Yinyang, "It is second young lady throwing a tantrum because of third foreign choosing a son-in-law for her, and is currently rushing over to Chiu Shui Yuan." With a cheese sound, Wan Yinyang laughed out loud and shook her head. This second young lady and younger sister will get angry because of this matter. She suddenly thought of something and her eyes dimmed. Really, one does not know how fortunate one is. Her Shen Dongling was also a young lady of the Shen residence, and her age was not much different from Shen Yu. But old Shen Foran did not look at the Shu daughter, and Shen Gui did not care about the matters in the courtyard. Shen Dongling's status was not high, and after such a long time, there were very few people who came to talk about marriage. Even if there were, they were all inexplicable families, and one would know that they were not good people. She was worried about Shen Dongling's marriage on this end, but Shen Yu was dissatisfied that there were people managing her. Reincarnating was indeed a matter of accumulating good karma. Just as she was thinking, She saw Shen Dongling standing up from behind the screen. She had grown a lot, and her figure was slender and slender. With her sharp brows and sharp eyes, she had the same graceful bearing that Wan Yinyang had when she sang the role. "Where are you going?" Wan Yinyang casually asked. Shen Dongling said, "Isn't Yinyang always worried about my marriage?" Wan Yinyang was surprised for a moment, as she did not know what she meant. "I waited for 2 years, and now this opportunity has come," Shen Dongling said. Chapter 530. Xinyu made a ruckus in Qiu Shui Yuan for a while, but unfortunately, this time Chenro Qiu seemed to have steeled her heart and was indifferent to her pleas. She even got angry and said that if she continued to make a ruckus, she would be placed under house arrest. Xinyu's heart was really flustered, but Chenro Qiu no longer bothered about her, and when she left Qiu Shui Yuan, she was filled with anger and anxiety. One saw a few people walking out of Kai Yun Yuan, and when the blue-clad young female in the lead saw her, she was startled for a moment before going forward and said, "Second older sister." Xinyu swept a glance at that female and made up n sound, but her attitude was somewhat cold. This female was not someone else, but the Shu daughter of the second household, Shen Dongling. In the past, Shen Dongling was suppressed by Renwan Yun and would not leave the courtyard all year round. Even the servants in the Shun residence did not recognize her. Ever since Ren Wanyun's death, Shen Gui was diagnosed to be unable to have an heir, and Shen Dongling became the only bloodline of the second household. But even so, Xinyu treated her gently on the surface, but in fact, she looked down on Shen Dongling's background. Even if it was the bloodline, it could not change the fact that Shen Dongling was a Shu daughter. If one were to say that Xinyu was jealous and resentful toward Shen Miao, then toward Shen Dongling, there was no hesitation of contempt. Shen Dongling, however, did not seem to see her cold eyes and still smiled. "I intend to spin a few bolts of silk to make silk cloth." A few days ago, Yinyang was talking about the patterns that are currently popular. Just happened to draw a few patterns. "Does second older sister want some?" Her words had a sense of fawning. "No need,"
Xinyu said.
Even though she was given a cold shoulder, Shen Dongling still said in a good temper, "Forget it like this." Originally, one wanted to make a few for second older sister. Xinyu was somewhat impatient. Currently, she was worried about the matter of Chenro Qiu choosing a husband for her, so how could she care so much? But seeing Shen Dongling lowering her head and revealing a white neck, her heart slightly paused. She withdrew her hand and carefully sized up Shen Dongling, and Xinyu's age difference was only half a year. If one were to say that among the original daughters of the Shen family, Shen Qing was generous, Xinyu was elegant, and Shen Miao was delicate and pretty, the three of them had the unique temperament of a D daughter, then Shen Dongling had the unique charm of a Shu daughter. In the beginning, Wan Yinyang was a part of the opera troupe, and since she was a Huadan, she would have some good looks. Shen Dongling did not look like Shen Gui, but was almost the same as the young Wan Yinyang. She had big eyes and a sharp chin, which made her look like a pretty lady. However, compared to those domineering concubines, Shen Dongling was always submissive and docile. She didn't fight or make a fuss, so she suppressed her concubine a bit. But after a careful look, she also looked like a beautiful woman who had just grown up. Shen Yu's heart suddenly moved, and she took the initiative to pull Shen Dongling's hand and said with a smile, "I did not let you do it for me because I am afraid that you'll be tired. You are a proper young lady in the residence, and not an embroidery lady in the embroidery workshop. What is the matter with doing needlework all day long?" Shen Dongling was surprised for a moment, as if she was surprised that Shen Yu was suddenly so intimate. Her face turned slightly red, and she was somewhat overwhelmed by the favor. Second older sister's words are too heavy. Normally, I do not have anything else to do, and Yinyang told me to do needlework, so I did some. It is not a hindrance. Wan Yinyang seemed to have been suppressed by Run Wan Yun for too long that her temperament became tamed. Now that she had turned around, what she loved to do the most was to do embroidery in the courtyard. Shen Dongling followed her temperament. Seeing Shen Dongling being so obedient, the smile in Xinyu's eyes became even more intense. "Your temperament should be changed. It is a good thing to be honest and love to do embroidery, but which young lady would do it all day long?" Tomorrow I will go to the jewelry shop to pick some jewelry.
Come along with me.
There are some new styles this year, and perhaps you will like it. If you see anything, I will gift it to you. Chapter 531. This. Shen Dongling waved her hands in a fluster. Cannot. Are you still being polite with me? Shen Yu pretended to be angry. You and I are after all the closest sisters. If even you are this distant, then what is the meaning of being sisters? Shen Dongling was somewhat at a loss and did not know how to continue Shen Yu's words. When Shen Yu saw it, she gently smiled and gently patted her shoulder. Third younger sister is still this timid and has a temperament that makes one's heart ache. All right, I still have some matters and will not talk to you anymore. Tomorrow let the maids go to Kai Yun Yuan to look for you and follow me to the jeweler shop. There was an unquestionable tone in her words. Shen Dongling nodded her head and accepted. After Shen Yu and entourage gradually walked far away, the maid beside Shen Dongling, Wu Mei said, "What is the meaning of this second young lady? One moment it is cold, and the next moment it is hot. Everything is fine. Why did she suddenly think of inviting young lady to the jeweler shop?" Shen Yu was naturally indifferent towards Shen Dongling, and it was only this enthusiasm that made one suspicious. She is using this method to please me. Shen Dongling looked at Shen Yu's gradually disappearing back and said with a smile, "Most likely she feels that I am easy to bribe and want me to rely on and trust her, so that in the future if she wants me to help her, it would be much easier." Wu Mei was shocked when she heard it. Then what can be done? This second young lady clearly has ill intentions and wants to use young lady. What if young lady is tricked? No harm. Shen Dongling smiled with some joy. I am also happy to help with this matter, just like how she gave me jewelry. I am not a saint, so there is no reason not to want good things. She said, "It is just that she is short-sighted." Shen Yu, who was walking towards Qiu Shui Yuan, had a heavy gaze, and her mind was filled with Shen Dongling's weak and obedient look. Both were graceful and virtuous ladies. Both were in their prime of age, and both were daughters of the Shen residents. Without any reason, Shen Yu had an intuition that if she could win over Shen Dongling, perhaps it would be of great use to her in the future. At the same time that Shen Yu was making a fuss at this end, at the other end, at the entrance of the western courtyard of the Shen residence, there was someone moving flowers outside. The bustling sound seemed to be a little lively. Shenwan passed by the door of the west courtyard and happened to hear an old maid exclaiming, "Miss, be careful." Shenwan looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young woman moving an extremely heavy flower pot onto the stage. Probably because the flower pot in her hand was too heavy, she almost fell on her foot. The nanny at the side heaved a sigh of relief. The woman turned around and smiled at the nanny. Her smile was as beautiful as a flower. Shenwan's footsteps halted. The woman wore a jade-green dress with a jade-green floral skirt. Her hair was in a lily bun, and there was an agate hairpin in her hair. There had been a thunderstorm last night, and this morning the sun had risen. She could not be considered to be devastatingly beautiful, and could only be considered elegant. However, the sunlight shone on her forehead until the beads of sweat sparkled. Because of the sweat, there was a slight blush on her face. There was an indescribable beauty about her. Everyone had the heart to love beauty. Even though Shenwan did not like female charms, it did not mean that he would be indifferent to beauties. In his inner courtyard, there was only Chun Ro Chiu. Even though he was in love, as time passed, he would feel somewhat bored. But now that he saw this beauty in the midst of heaven and earth, naturally, he could not help but stop. It was like admiring a painting or a poem that he liked. At this moment, Shenwan did not have any other emotions. He had never been very enthusiastic about the matters between men and women. That female seemed to have noticed that someone was looking at her and turned her head over. When she saw Shenwan, she was surprised for a moment before walking over. She walked in front of Shenwan without any embarrassment or shyness and gracefully bowed. Third Master. Chapter 532. Shenwan swept a glance at her and suddenly realized her identity before saying, "Young Lady Chong." Song Zai Qing only saw Shenwan once, and that was when she just came to the Shen residence. At night, Chenro Chiu brought her to Rongjing Tang to greet old Shinforan. The lights were dim at night, and everyone were thinking about the matters of the day. Thus Shunwan did not pay attention to Song Ziqing. One did not expect that upon closer look, it was a rare beauty with such temperament. Thinking that Chenro Chiu and Song Ziqing seemed to be on good terms, his attitude became more intimate. "What is young Lady Chong doing?" Shunwan asked with a smile. Song Ziqing turned back to look at the flower terrace at the courtyard entrance and smiled. It rained last night, and many of the flowers were drenched and damaged by the wind. "I am bandaging them." "Bandaging?" Shunwan was somewhat curious and asked, "How to bandage flowers?" Song Ziqing gently smiled. "Third master, just watch." Shunwan walked over to the flower terrace to take a look, and indeed saw those scattered flowers. Some were wrapped in cloth strips, and some were smeared with something like medicine, but it was carefully arranged neatly. There were some scissors and cloth strips around, and there was a flower that was broken in half, but it was actually connected back together. "You really have a heart." Shunwan sighed. "It is rare to be willing to put in effort." After the thunderstorm last night, the flowers and plants were inevitably damaged. Even Chenro Chiu, who loved flowers, felt it was a pity before throwing away those flowers and plants. The flowers and plants that were destroyed were no longer as beautiful as before, and it was annoying to keep them. One did not think that Song Ziqing was willing to take care of these flowers and plants. Not only did she not throw them away, she even bandaged them properly. Flowers and plants also have life. Song Ziqing smiled. Since one say that one love flowers, one cannot forget one's original intention upon encountering such a matter. All living things have a spirit, and one cannot be a person who says one's mind is different. Keep on saying that one loves flowers and plants, but one cannot even do such a small matter. Song Ziqing said straightforwardly. Moreover, it is just a matter of moving one's hands. Pleasing others and pleasing oneself, why not? Good pleasing others and pleasing oneself. Shunwan's gaze towards Song Ziqing was filled with appreciation. Young Lady Chong is the one who is truly elegant. It is me who is vulgar. Third elder praises me too much. Song Ziqing teased. Everyone are common people, and I also have selfish motives. If I can raise the flowers and plants well, in the future I will feel more at ease living in the residence. There's always something we can do. Shunwan laughed heartily. Chong young lady worry too much. Even if Chong young lady do not know how to plant anything, there would not be anyone in the Shun residence who would want to chase you away. Song Ziqing also laughed along. Then many thanks, third master. She suddenly thought of something and looked at Shunwan. Speaking of which, I accidentally set up a game of chess yesterday, but I couldn't solve it no matter what. I originally wanted to ask Third Madam to help me take a look, but Third Madam seems to be a little busy today. I heard that Third Master is also a chess expert. Could you give me a few pointers? Thinking of something else, he smiled and said, I can brew tea for Third Master. Third Foreign might have told you that the tea I brew is very delicious. Her attitude was natural and unrestrained. If she refused, it would seem that Shunwan was being rude. In the end, she used tea as a condition, showing a bit of mischievousness. Shunwan pondered for a moment before saying with a smile, it is better to be respectful than to accept. Both of them went to the stone table in the garden and started to play chess. When they were playing chess, they also casually chatted. Shunwan was surprised to discover that not only was Song Ziqing's chess skills outstanding, when talking with him, she also dabbled in astronomy and the earth. Moreover, she was very knowledgeable and was able to say one or two words about the matters of the court. Shunwan had always appreciated talented people and did not place much importance on a female's beauty. In the inner courtyard, he only favored Chenro Chiu, but it was because Chenro Chiu was proficient in the four arts and was an out-and-out talented female. But Chenro Chiu had a bad point, and that was because she was born in a scholarly family. She would occasionally put on airs and have a self-righteous look. If it was once or twice, it would be interesting, but for people who lived together daily, it was inevitable that Chenro Chiu would occasionally be too petty and haggle over every ounce. Chapter 533. Song Zai-Ching was very different. She was also a talented female, but Song Zai-Ching did not have the arrogance of a noble family, but was rather candid. There was no lack of delicacy in being candid and very understanding. When talking to her, it seemed to be full of wit and made one's heart warm up. Unknowingly, Shen Wan's gaze towards Song Zai-Ching became more and more appreciative and lingered longer on the other party. Zhao Mama looked from afar, and there was a trace of joy in her eyes. Without batting an eyelid, she instructed the maids to guard the courtyard door and not let anyone else in. As such, in the imperial palace of Mingqi, it was exceptionally lively today. In order to entertain the two guests from the Qin country and the Great Liang, the Crown Prince specially set up a banquet. The Crown Prince and Princess of the Qin country were present, and Prince Rue of the Great Liang also received the invitation. Accompanying them to the banquet were the 9 princes of Mingqi. It was a fact that the Crown Prince's illness was getting more serious. Because of this, even the morale of Prince Chu and Prince Xian, who followed the Crown Prince, was shaken. In these 2 years, the Crown Prince's power was gradually replaced by other princes. Almost everyone tacitly agreed on one fact, that the Crown Prince's position would not last for long. The Crown Prince himself also realized that in these 2 years, he did not participate much in the matters of the court. It was not that he did not want to participate, but there were too few people following him. In contrast, Prince Zhou and Prince Jing and Prince Li's faction were becoming more prominent. King Li had a lot of followers because he was a smiling tiger all along. As for the Prince Zhou and Prince Jing, they relied on their own consort Su Xian. These two factions were now fighting like fire and water, and there were some traces of the dagger being revealed. The most stable one was Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi. Prince Ding also participated in the court matters in these 2 years, but most of the matters he participated in were very tactful, as if it was to deliberately show that he had no ambition. These were all trivial matters, but even so, Emperor Wenhui was very satisfied with him. It was also because he showed this neutrality and calmness that no matter if it was the Crown Prince, Prince Zhou, or Prince Li, they did not deliberately suppress him. Prince Ding was the safest person. In the hall, the Crown Prince smiled and raised his cup. Everyone came from afar. One should really celebrate. Huang Fu Hao sat next to the Crown Prince, raised his cup, and clinked it with the Crown Prince. He said with a smile, "Many thanks for the Crown Prince's hospitality." Beside Huang Fu Hao sat Princess Ming'an. After being grounded by Huang Fu Hao for a few days, Princess Ming'an was finally released. Today, she was also dressed up, and she looked at the purple-robed youth sitting opposite her with a loving expression. Unfortunately, the falling flower had a yearning, but the heartless brook was heartless. Prince Rue's face was half covered, but his eyes did not look at her at all. However, he did not look at the Crown Prince. Instead, he stared at the wine cup, and no one knew what he was thinking. The Crown Prince smiled and asked, "Why does Prince Rue not drink wine? Is the wine not to your liking?" Prince Rue's lips hooked up. One's body is not well, and should not drink alcohol. It was an undisguised slap to the face. Even though this Prince Rue had been mysterious ever since he came to Mingqi, and one could not see any clue from his attitude towards Mingqi, but the etiquette was complete. Today, everyone present could not help but have a thought in their hearts. Prince Rue of the Great Liang seemed to be somewhat unhappy. But out of nowhere, who had provoked him? There was some awkwardness on the Crown Prince's face. Fu Xiuyi opened his mouth. "Since that is the case, Your Highness Prince Rue will use tea to replace wine. Someone come and serve tea to Prince Rue." Fu Xiuyi opened his mouth and continued the Crown Prince's words. The Crown Prince's expression became better and was somewhat grateful to Fu Xiuyi. The rest of the princes were in agreement with Fu Xiuyi's words. Even though Prince Rue's background was not small, no one was willing to be submissive in front of other countries. Fu Xiuyi's unyielding and polite words had given Mingqi a lot of face. Chapter 534. Huang Fu Hao looked at Prince Rue inquiringly, but Princess Ming'an was somewhat worried as she looked at Prince Rue. "Is Your Highness Prince Rue all right?" But where did she feel uncomfortable? Should we call the imperial physician over to take a look? When Huang Fuhao heard this, his face immediately sank, and he looked at Princess Ming and fiercely. Forget about Princess Ming and's usual arrogance, but now in front of so many princes of Mingqi to show her infatuation with Prince Rui, was this not rushing to be seen as a joke? Moreover, Huang Fuhao was also a male, and a male understood a male's mind the best. The way Prince Rui looked at Princess Ming'an, it was obvious that there was some impatience. If this Prince Rui was a magnanimous person, then it was fine, but if Prince Rui's temper was not good and was really tired of Princess Ming'an, then the entire Great Liang would not have a good impression of the Qing country, and the one who would suffer would be him. Prince Rui did not bother with her words and instead looked at the last person in the opposite seat. Everyone noticed his gaze, and when they looked over, it was Prince Ding Fu Xiaoyi. Fu Xiaoyi had always been the most law-abiding among the 9 princes, but at this moment Prince Rui was looking at him alone. The gazes of the few princes when they looked at Fu Xiaoyi changed. Fu Xiaoyi was also calm and did not panic because of Prince Rui's gaze as he looked at Prince Rui. Prince Rui suddenly smiled and said, "Before coming to Mingqi, one had heard that the 9th prince is a young and handsome talent. Now one see that the reputation is well-deserved. One do not know if there is a marriage match?" Everyone did not expect that Prince Rui would suddenly say such a sentence, and their expressions suddenly became strange. Fu Xiaoyi was also surprised for a moment before replying, "Not yet." Prince Zhou laughed heartily. He sat beside Fu Xiaoyi and took the opportunity to pat Fu Xiaoyi's shoulder. "Our number 9 is the only one among the few brothers who is not married yet. Why, Prince Rui is also interested in number 9's marriage." The lips under Prince Rui's mask hooked up as he leisurely said, "There are also many princesses of suitable age in the Great Liang Palace." When this prince saw the 9th prince, one felt that one hit it off and had the heart to form a good relationship with Qin and Jin. As soon as he said that, the expressions of everyone present changed drastically. The meaning of Prince Rui's words was that he actually wanted to be in-laws with Fu Xiaoyi. If it was really like what Prince Rui said, to marry a princess of the Great Liang, the meaning behind it was not only one more concubine but also more help from the Great Liang. If one were to say that the previous gentle attitude towards Fu Xiaoyi was because Fu Xiaoyi had never expressed his interest in the throne, then Prince Rui's words at this moment made everyone unable to look at Fu Xiaoyi in the same way as before. Because once Fu Xiaoyi married the princess of the Great Liang, he would become the most powerful competitor for the throne. Fu Xiaoyi's hand that was holding the wine cup tightened as he looked at Prince Rui quietly. Was it really just like what he said on the surface, that he wanted the princess of the Great Liang to marry him? Fu Xiaoyi didn't think so. Prince Rui was not helping him, but harming him. Fu Xiaoyi had always adhered to the view of concealing one's strength and biding one's time. He would not reveal his trump card until the last moment. Although Prince Rui's conditions were tempting, but if he really had such good intentions, Fu Xiaoyi would definitely not be willing to raise this matter in front of all the princes now. With just one sentence, the princes' gazes were filled with wariness as they looked at him, almost pushing him into the teeth of the storm. No matter how tempted he was, it was impossible for him to agree. Fu Xiaoyi clenched his teeth. He did not know why, but he felt that this Prince Rui, who he had never interacted with, seemed to be full of hostility towards him, else he would not just casually say a sentence and let him fall into such a difficult situation. His heart was on guard against Prince Rui, but on the surface he blushed. "Many thanks to your Highness Prince Rui's kindness, but currently this one does not have any thoughts of marrying." "Oh?" Prince Rui's lips hooked up. "But 9th prince already has a female that you admire, so you are not willing?" This prince would not do such things as breaking up a pair of affectionate couples. If that is the case, one will not force it. Chapter 535. Your Highness must be joking. Fu Xiaoyi cupped his hands. It is just that currently one do not have such thoughts. Seeing that Fu Xiaoyi straightforwardly rejected Prince Rui's proposal, the faces of the princes became better. But after the matter just now, they were no longer as assured towards Fu Xiaoyi as before. Today, Fu Xiaoyi rejected, but who could guarantee that he would change his mind in the future? The matter of the emperor's position was a huge temptation, and the 9 of them wanted to fight for it. So why would one feel that there would be a saint in the imperial family with a pure heart and few desires? Really strange. Prince Rui, however, seemed to be only interested in Fu Xiaoyi and did not let him off just because Fu Xiaoyi rejected the proposal. He said with a smile that was not a smile, "Ninth prince is not married, and there is no one that you admire, so why are you not willing to consider this matter?" This prince sees that 9th prince is also a distinguished and outstanding person. Could it be that there are no young ladies that admire you? When the words were said, Prince Chang, who had always been somewhat careless, laughed out loud. "Your Highness Prince Rui might not know, but originally in our Mingqi, there was a young lady that admired our number 9, and the entire court knew about it. Is it Shen Miao?" Not waiting for Prince Cheng to finish, Princess Ming and hurriedly interrupted his words. Princess Ming had heard of those rumors about Shen Miao, and at the beginning she even ridiculed it. So Princess also know about it? Prince Cheng was somewhat surprised. The matter of Shen Miao being infatuated with His Highness Prince Ding is known by the entire Qin country, so it is not considered strange. Princess Ming said gloatingly, as long as it was something that could make Shen Miao lose face, she was always willing to stick a stick in.
Correct.
Prince Cheng smiled. Your Highness Prince Rui might not know, but this Shen Miao is the daughter of the formidable great general, and the one that competed with your Highness at the tribute banquet. You have also seen her before. He sighed. To think that Shen Miao was still young and would think of ways to look for number 9 all day long. She was also shameless and directly told number 9 about her admiration. She also did needlework, made pastries, learned to play the qin, and learned to write poems. She really did many things. Even though Prince Cheng said so, his words were filled with malicious insults, as if he was watching a joke. That day at the tribute banquet, she was quite graceful. The one who spoke was Huang Fu Hao. Hearing it from the outside and hearing it from someone who knows the inside story are two different things. Huang Fu Hao could not help but be somewhat surprised. In the Qin country's residence and at the tribute banquet, Shen Miao's performance was not like that of one who would compromise. Needlework, pastry making. Huang Fu Hao thought of how Shen Miao was frowning at Princess Ming'an and felt that it was very strange. He joked, the 9th prince really has a heart of stone. That Shen young lady was still young at that time. Prince Chen continued, who knew that 2 years later, she would become so beautiful. Moreover, he was originally stupid and cowardly, but now there was not a single shadow of his former self. Among the young ladies in Mingqi's Ding capital, there are not many who are more outstanding than her. Prince Ching chuckled. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have been so heartless back then and let down the beauty's kindness. It's too late for regrets now. Princess Ming'an sneered. This Shen young lady is also a wonderful person. As a young lady, she does not know shame at all and directly chased after. It is really hard on her, sewing, making cakes, and following every day. Really considerate. Knowing that Princess Ming'an was dealt with by Shen Miao at the tribute banquet, she was not happy with Shen Miao. All the princes only smiled and did not speak. It was Fu Xiaoyi who gently shook his head and said, Shen young lady is a good person. Everyone better not make fun of her. No one would be able to bear the sin of ruining her reputation. Number 9. You're just too serious. Prince Chu smiled. You do not want others, but do not allow others to want. If it was not that we have already set up a consort, I would also be willing to marry Shen young lady.
Correct.
The princes echoed one after another. It is indeed so. Huang Fu Hao smiled. If I was the 9th prince, I would definitely marry her. Princess Ming was extremely unhappy in her heart. She looked at Prince Rui and discovered that Prince Rui did not join in the jeering, but his eyes were quiet. She was delighted and asked, Does Prince Rui also think so? Prince Rui paused for a moment. Everyone's eyes looked towards him. The young man wearing a mask picked up the wine cup and played with it before lightly saying, Sewing for men, making cakes, learning to play the qin, learning to write poems. Princess Ming said, "Correct. It is simply immoral and a joke." "Such a good young lady," Prince Rue said with a smile. "Unfortunately, this prince also wants." Chapter 536. As luck would have it, this prince also wants it. Everyone who was seated was originally smiling, but after a while, they could not smile anymore. Huang Fu Hao stared at Prince Rue's eyes, and Fu Xiaoyi also looked at him in surprise. Princess Ming An's face was stiff, and her expression was instantly distorted. It was the crown prince who laughed and smoothed things over. A fair and graceful lady is a gentleman's desire. Shan young lady has both looks and talent, naturally would attract numerous heroes to bow down to her. Everyone followed and nodded their heads in agreement. Prince Rue picked up the wine cup with a smile that was not a smile and did not speak anymore. Everyone thought that he was just casually joking. Not because of anything else. How could Prince Rue of the Great Liang marry a Ming Qi's official daughter? Not to mention that the two of them were not compatible. In such a sensitive and tense situation, to marry a young lady from another country was like a restless trap. Who knew if that young lady was a spy sent by the other country? No matter how big one's guts were, one would not dare to take this risk. Everyone was still smiling as they drank and ate, but ever since Prince Rue said those words, Princess Ming An's entire person was immersed in resentment, and her eyes were filled with hatred, making Huang Fu Hao frown repeatedly. On the whole, the crown prince's banquet was considered to be successful. The princes of the Ming Qi most likely wanted to find out what kind of attitude the Qin country and the Great Liang had towards the Ming Qi. Until now, the Qin country was very close to the Ming Qi and did not have any intention to be enemies. It was Prince Rue who came from the Great Liang who was neither cold nor warm and was not considered close, much less hostile, which made one unable to fathom. Even when everyone was drinking to their heart's content, he was still clear-headed because he did not drink any wine, and his words were watertight, which made one feel depressed. At the end, Prince Rue was the first to leave the banquet. Because of his departure, Princess Ming An's expression became even worse. The extremely angry Princess Ming An punished several servants on the way back, and even the subordinates who came over to Prince Ding to hand over the official letter were scolded by her. Those two people were not bystanders, but Xie Chong Wu and Xie Chong Chao. Fu Xiaoyi reprimanded both of them before Princess Ming and let it go. Upon returning to Prince Ding residence, Fu Xiaoyi informed his advisors about the matter that happened at the banquet today and pondered that Prince Rue of the Great Liang seemed to have some enmity towards this prince and deliberately suppressed him at the banquet. Fu Xiaoyi had recruited a group of capable people. As a prince, other than forbearance, perhaps his scheming was not the highest, but in terms of recruiting talents and perseverance, no one could compare to him among the 9 princes. He could wait outside the wooden door for an entire night in the coldest weather, and he could also plan a stable and prosperous life for the family of the other party. As a result, his advisors were not only talented, but also loyal to him. Whenever there was a problem, he would be able to get the answer from his advisor. And the art of controlling people was what an emperor should learn the most. On this point, Fu Xiaoyi was indeed the best emperor. All the advisors were deep in thought when Fu Xiaoyi looked at the green-clad male at the front. Does gentleman Pei have any opinion? If one were to say that every advisor here were people that Fu Xiaoyi trusted, then Pei Lang was definitely Fu Xiaoyi's confidant. Pei Lang was recruited by Fu Xiaoyi 2 years ago. At that time, Fu Xiaoyi fancied Pei Lang's talent, but Pei Lang himself was not greedy for power, so at the end Fu Xiaoyi had to put in all his effort and even use the righteousness of the world to convince Pei Lang to be moved. And this person that he had spent a lot of effort to win over did not disappoint Fu Xiaoyi's high expectations, and in these 2 years, he helped Fu Xiaoyi to solve many difficult problems. Thus until now, whenever he encountered a difficult problem that he could not solve, Fu Xiaoyi would first think of Pei Lang. Chapter 537. Pei Lang frowned. Did your highness have any interaction with Prince Rue in other places? Fu Xiaoyi shook his head. This is strange. Pei Lang analyzed. Since Prince Rue is representing the Great Liang, he should not only value your highness. If they hadn't interacted before, he really couldn't think of any reason to make things difficult for his highness. Your highness did not obstruct his path, so even if the Great Liang wanted to make things difficult for Ming-Chi, the person they would look for should be His Majesty or the Crown Prince. Fu Xiaoyi nodded his head. I also think so. Perhaps, he pondered for a moment, perhaps it's for Xin Miao? Your Highness, what do you mean by that? Another advisor asked.
I thought about it.
In those words that Prince Rue said, only Xin Miao was related to me. It was just that at that time I could not tell if he was joking or doing it on purpose, and also felt that Xin Miao had nothing to do with him. Now that I think about it, it is somewhat strange. An advisor said, could it be that Prince Rue and Xin Miao have an unspeakable relationship in private? Pei Lang said flatly, that's impossible. Everyone looked at him as Pei Lang's words were very convincing. Whatever he said or prophesied in front of Fu Xiaoyi would always be confirmed in the end. No matter how dissatisfied they were with his conjecture, they had to admit it. Prince Rue had just arrived in Ming-Chi, and Xin Miao had just followed Xin Xian back to the capital not long ago, thus it was absolutely impossible to have any contact before this. If after this, Pei Lang cupped his hands and said, Your Highness has dealt with Prince Rue for so long, and should know that Prince Rue is not a person that is easy to understand. Since the Great Liang had sent him to Ming-Chi as an envoy, Prince Rue would certainly be a person who would weigh the pros and cons. In such a short period of time, to go against His Highness because of Xin Miao, a woman, is not in line with benefits. Hearing this, Fu Xiaoyi muttered, What you said makes sense. In Mr. Pei's opinion, what should we do now? Since Your Highness was not implicated too much today, if we act rashly, it will make Prince Zhou and the others vigilant. Ever since the tribute banquet, Prince Rue had not mentioned anything about leaving, so he must have other things to do in the Ding capital. Now that the state of Qin was still here, there was nothing to fear. Why not wait and see what Prince Rue has in mind before making a decision? Pei Lang said slowly. Fu Xiaoyi nodded. Since that is the case, then do as Mr. Pei says. He pressed his forehead and said, I've drunk too much today, and there's a long court session tomorrow. I'm going to rest first. Everyone, please disperse. After Fu Xiaoyi left, the aides in the hall also dispersed in twos and threes. No one was with Pei Lang because Pei Lang was alone and was too trusted in front of Fu Xiaoyi, thus it would more or less cause others to be jealous. In the residence of Prince Ding, no one was on good terms with him. Pei Lang walked out of the house and stared at the stars in the sky. 2 years. It had been 2 years. He followed the agreement with a young female and finally became Fu Xiaoyi's confidant. The days passed comfortably like this. With his own intelligence, he gained Fu Xiaoyi's trust, and everything was very natural. Sometimes Pei Lang even felt that this should be his life. But Xin Miao's reappearance broke this illusion. From the beginning, Pei Lang knew that this deal with Xin Miao was like negotiating with the devil. From the moment he got close to Fu Xiaoyi, there would be a day like now, where he would become a spy that he originally despised. Fu Xiaoyi treated him extremely well, but he was a person who betrayed him from the beginning. Pei Lang sighed deeply. The comfortable days were over. From now on, the road that he had to walk would be the same as today, trembling with fear. If he was not careful, he would fall into a bottomless abyss, and there would be no room for redemption. Xin Miao, the purple-clad young female's delicate face, appeared in front of Pei Lang's eyes. Chapter 538. It was already so difficult for him as a man, so how could the young female who schemed behind the scenes shoulder everything? He would not be able to understand this logic in his entire life. Under the oil lamp, Xin Miao was carefully writing. The snow-white paper was spread out, and Gui was grinding the ink at the side. Jingzhe carefully added some oil to the oil lamp every once in a while so that the flame was not bright enough. She wrote very seriously, and from time to time, she would stop to think for a while before continuing to write. By the time he finished writing on the square piece of paper, it was already quiet outside. Shen Miao put down the brush and lifted the paper to blow on it. After making sure that the ink on the paper was dry, she then found an envelope and put the paper in. It was handed over to Jingzhi's hands. Tomorrow morning, find a reliable person outside and send this letter to Song Ziqing's hands in the Shun residence. Do not pass it to other people's hands and must only be sent to Song Ziqing's hands.
Shen Miao said.
Jingzhi complied as she kept the letter. Even though she was puzzled why would Shen Miao write a letter to Song Ziqing without rhyme or reason, she did not ask much. Guyu put away the ink and paper on the table and smiled. Young lady should also rest early. Now that it is late at night, it would not be good for the body to rest later. Shen Miao nodded her head. After Jingzhi and Guyu left, she took the oil lamp to the small table in front of the couch and sat by the side of the couch in a daze. After having such a dream last night, she could not sleep no matter what and was thinking about this matter for the entire day. It was as if she had glimpsed a little clue of the previous life from that dream. She finally knew why Song Ziqing was able to turn Luo Shui Yan into a wisp of spirit so easily. It was because Shen Miao was helping the evildoer. If one were to say that Song Ziqing was the main culprit, then she herself had become the executioner that was used by others. Thinking of these, the hatred could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Shen Miao hated that she could not swallow Song Ziqing alive. But it was too simple to think of ways to let Song Ziqing's reputation be ruined. Song Ziqing's entire life had been thinking of inexhaustible wealth and status. Why not let Song Ziqing get everything that she wanted and then turn it all into bubbles? Let her be ridiculed by the world. If he used Song Ziqing to deal with Chen Roqiu, it would save him some strength. The words "make the best use of everything" was a lesson that was engraved into the bone marrow. Using a borrowed knife to kill. This time it should be Shen Miao's turn to play. She thought for a whole day and finally came up with something. The letter was densely packed with Shen Wan's likes and dislikes. After being Shen Wan's niece for so many years, in the past because she sincerely respected Shen Wan, Shen Miao had done a lot of understanding to please third Shu since young, and now all this understanding was given away with both hands, and it was even given to an ambitious female. Shen Miao did not believe that with Song Ziqing's character, a hypocrite like Shen Wan would not fall into her trap. On the surface, they looked like a match made in heaven, but on the inside, they were both jackals, wolves, tigers, and leopards. None of them were good people. Wouldn't it be more interesting to tear them apart in the future? A trace of sneer flashed in Shen Miao's eyes. Dogs biting each other would always be interesting to watch. She took off her outer garments and climbed onto the bed. Just as she was about to lie down, she unconsciously glanced at the window. The window was closed tightly, and there was a breeze outside. In the dark night, there was no one else. Shen Miao was startled for a moment and secretly scolded herself in her heart. Why would she suddenly look at the window without rhyme or reason? It was as if she was not used to it if Xie Jingxing did not come. She shook her head and suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. After blowing out the oil lamp, she then really went to sleep. In the residence of Prince Rui, there was someone feeding a tiger in the courtyard. The white tiger was playing happily in the courtyard and snuggling at the youth's feet. From time to time, it would stretch its head out to beg for food from the latter's hands. Perhaps it was because the food was a pleasant surprise and it was being well taken care of. This white tiger's fur was shining and seemed to have become fatter, looking like a beautiful big cat. Chapter 539. Don't feed it anymore. If you continue feeding it, it will really become a cat. How can it still look like a tiger? Gao Yang poured cold water on it as he watched from the side. Xie Jingxing turned a deaf ear and continued to feed the white tiger as he said indifferently, "I pampered him. Do you have an opinion?" Gao Yang choked and stretched out his hand. Fine, fine, fine. I don't care if you feed the cat or the tiger. What exactly happened in the Eastern Palace today? Inexplicably, why are you making things difficult for Prince Ding? For a person like Fu Xiaoyi, he must have some suspicions towards you. It is not appropriate to beat the grass and alert the snake. What exactly are you thinking? When Gao Yang heard about what happened in the palace, he didn't dare to believe it at first. Xie Jingxing had his own way of doing things, and now was not a good time to go against Fu Xiaoyi. Fu Xiaoyi also had some means in private. Even though it was not to the extent of hurting Xie Jingxing, it would still give Xie Jingxing some trouble, and now there was no room for any mistakes. Seeing that Xie Jingxing did not have the intention to care about him, Gao Yang's eyes turned. Could it be because of Xin Miao? Xie Jingxing said, "You are very free?"
What?
Is the Su family's matter settled? Xie Jingxing asked. Gao Yang was taken aback for a moment before replying, "I've already arranged for someone to do it." But, after a pause, he continued, "What's the point of doing this? Even though you and Su Mingfeng are good friends, if one day he knew of your real identity, he would definitely become enemies with you. At that time, everything you do will be considered as a scheme in his eyes. Since you've done it, you might as well not have done it. Why do you have to do this?" Emperor Wenhui had the intention to suppress the Su family, and even if the Su family had deliberately withdrawn their power, there were still some leftover tails left, and these tails would most likely become the handle that would put the Su family to death in the future. What Xie Jingxing wanted Gao Yang to do was to help the Su family to secretly take care of these weaknesses, to ensure that the Su family would not have any changes in the future. Gao Yang was non-committal to Xie Jingxing's approach. Now that Xie Jingxing was wearing a mask, no one knew that he was Prince Rui, but if there was a day when the matter was exposed, it was alright to not admit it, but Su Mingfeng would definitely be able to recognize it. His childhood brother, whom he had known for so long, was deceiving him. Moreover, the Great Liang and Ming Qi would one day stand in a hostile position. Xie Jingxing could protect the Su family, but could not protect the past with Su Mingfeng. This was an unavoidable fact. Why do I need to consider his thoughts when I do things? Xie Jingxing said, "It is only because I want to do it." Really? Gao Yang said with a rare sharpness, "Perhaps you have forgotten that you are different from the past. With this identity, it is destined that in Ming Qi, there is no one that is trustworthy. If you took off your mask, others would look at you with vigilance. As a subordinate, I can warn you that there is nothing to hide, Your Highness." The night breeze blew gently, and the white tiger was full. It burped and happily bit Xie Jingxing's sleeve. The courtyard was filled with the silent sound of the wind. After some time, Xie Jingxing said, "No, not everyone. There is one person who is different." He said, "One can use the identity of Prince Rui of the Great Liang to make friends with." "You mean Xin Miao?" Gao Yang reminded, "Your Highness must not forget that the reason why Xin Miao is friends with Your Highness is because she also wants to deal with Prince Ding, Fu Xiaoyi. Your Highness can help her, but if there is a day at the end, she would still stand on the opposite side of Your Highness. To be spurned by the world, isn't Your Highness prepared from the start? If it is just a momentary pleasure, it would be a golden millet dream, and after waking up, it would only increase sadness. So what about that?" Gao Yang was surprised for a moment. Chapter 540. Xie Jingxing asked back, "So what?" He picked up the white tiger from the ground and held it in his arms before standing up. His tall and slender figure was as straight as a pine tree in the night. "There is a price to pay for everything in the world," he said. "Be it power or people, it is all the same. If that day really comes, this prince will think of ways to snatch it. The country has to be snatched, the throne has to be snatched, the woman has to be snatched, and even the heart has to be snatched. From the beginning, this road is already destined. So, what if the world hates? If one cannot even bear this little bit, one should return to the Great Liang as soon as possible. This prince had never forgotten the road that one wants to walk. On the contrary, this prince is very clear about what one wants. So, do not doubt this prince's decision. If everything is a pipe dream, then turn the dream into reality." He said lightly but without a doubt, "This prince has this confidence." "Gao Yang, do you doubt?" Many years later, when Gao Yang once again recalled this winter night, he seemed to be able to feel the boiling blood in his bones. He had seen that youth's arrogance and naughtiness, and saw his youth's arrogance and haughtiness, but in that instant, it was as if many years had passed, and he saw the natural overbearingness and majesty that came from the imperial family. If everything is a pipe dream, then turn the dream into reality. How many people in the world dared to say such words? But Xie Jingxing said it. Gao Yang paused, and after a moment, he knelt down and gave the other person a greeting of a ruler and official. This official vow to follow your highness to death. Get up. Xie Jingxing teased the white tiger in his arms. Gao Yang patted the dust on his knees and thought for a moment before asking solemnly, "So, how does your highness plan to snatch Xin young lady?" Xie Jingxing, get lost? After entering the early winter, the days passed exceptionally quickly. But it seemed that everyone was busy and there was nothing new happening in the Ding capital. If there was anything new, it would be the matters in the Shen residence. After Chen Roqiu's conversation with Shen Wan that day, she steeled her heart to marry Xinyu out. She would bring Xinyu to socialize with various Furins. Even if Shan Yu was 10,000 unwilling, after being locked in the ancestral hall by Xin Wan, she dared not do it again. Xinyu had a delicate temperament and could not take hardship, thus, she could only obediently follow Chen Roqiu to see those Furins. Even though Chen Roqiu wanted to marry Xinyu, she also doted on her daughter, thus she was very careful when picking the person. Even though Shen Wan was an astute person, he was more humane than Shen Gui. Xinyu was the pearl in his palms, and those families that were drawn out, other than the residents being well-matched and Xinyu being able to marry over, the other party's males were all outstanding youths in the Ding capital, and there were no messy groups of concubines in the residence. This was all thanks to Xinyu's reputation as a talented female. A talented and refined young lady would easily gain the goodwill of others. Because she was always worried about Xinyu's matters, Chen Roqiu neglected Xinwan. One did not know from when Song Zaiqing became Xinwan's confidant. After Xinwan left court tomorrow, he would confide in Chen Roqiu if there were any problems on his mind. Now that Chen Roqiu did not have the time to relieve him, Song Zaiqing instead became Xinwan's room. Not only that, Song Zaiqing would occasionally help Xinwan to see the moon. One did not know why, but Song Zaiqing had many interests and habits that were exactly the same as Xinwan. For example, Xinwan did not like sweet things, and the pastries that Song Zaiqing made were also not that sweet. Xinwan liked fragrant tea, and the tea that Song Zaiqing brewed was mostly fragrant tea. Even the calligraphy and painting that they admired the most coincidentally were the same. One would always have some feelings of closeness towards people that were similar to oneself, and Xinwan increasingly felt that Song Zaiqing and himself hit it off. After being used to Chen Roqiu's gentleness and aloofness, Song Zaiqing's clear-cut intelligence was like a cool breeze, causing Xinwan's heart to have waves that had not been stirred for a long time. Chapter 541. It was just that Chen Roqiu did not know about all these. Naturally, Chen Roqiu did not know that Song Zaiqing's methods were superb, and every time she would not take the initiative to look for Xinwan, it was always Xinwan who took the initiative to look for Song Zaiqing. And when both of them were together, they were separated far apart and looked very courteous. It was just a casual conversation, and even if others saw it, they would not think much about it. So why would they go and remind Chen Roqiu? On Chen Roqiu's side, there was another unimaginable matter, which was that the third young lady of the Shen residence, Xin Dongling, suddenly had a close relationship with Xinyu. Even though there were only these two young ladies in the Shen residence, Xinyu was like Chen Roqiu in her bones and looked down on people with a lower status than her, not to mention a Shu daughter that crawled out from Yinyang's womb. After so many years, there was no interaction, and inexplicably, they became close sisters. It was indeed suspicious. In Kaiyan Yuan in the Shen residence, Shen Dongling was pushing the pastries in front of Xinyu and smiled. This is the new pastries that the kitchen made. Milk and osmanthus were added. Second older sister should also try it. Xinyu glanced at the pastries, but did not reach out to take it. Instead, she sighed somewhat irritatedly. How would I have the mood to eat now? I am already full from anger. Shin Dongling looked at her and said worriedly, "Second older sister is still distressed about your own marriage." "You do not know," Shun Yu said in a bad mood. "Yesterday, I went to the residence of the Minister of Land, and my mother was extremely satisfied with that gentleman Wang. If I guessed correctly, she always had the idea of marrying me to Gentleman Wang. Now I am unable to eat and am so anxious that my head hurts." "Minister of Land?" Shin Dongling said curiously. "Is it that gentleman called Wang Bai?" "You actually know about it?" Shin Yu looked at her suspiciously. "Once heard father talk about it." Shin Dongling smiled shyly. Shin Gui was also an official in the court, and it was possible that he knew about the Wang family's matters.
Shin Yu said, "Correct."
"It is him. One heard that Gentleman Wang is very knowledgeable, and now he has entered officialdom. Even though it is not considered a meteoric rise, but it is only a matter of time before he stands out." "Second older sister, this is a good thing. Why are you not willing?" Shin Dongling asked. "No matter how much you praise him, I don't like it," Shin Yu said in a bad mood. "If I want to marry, I must marry a person who is born with unlimited glory." "What is he?" Hearing this, Shin Dongling probed. "Could it be second sister has someone she likes?" Shin Yu was surprised for a moment before covering it up. "No. What nonsense are you talking about?" Shin Dongling smiled apologetically. "I thought that young Master Wang was a good person. If second sister didn't like it, was it because she already had someone she liked, so she didn't like anyone else? It was I who misunderstood second sister." "Second sister, please don't be angry with me." Shin Yu waved her hands, but her eyes were somewhat absent-minded. She thought of Fu Xiaoyi and her heart could not help but ache. Chen Roqiu had told her that Fu Xiaoyi wanted to marry someone who could help him. She was just a daughter of an ordinary civil official, so Fu Xiaoyi would not marry her. But Shin Yu still could not help but think that if there was a day when Fu Xiaoyi fell in love with her, would he not care about those worldly possessions and treat her soberly? She was so beautiful and intelligent, with the reputation of a talented female throughout the Ding capital. Naturally, she would marry a man of unparalleled elegance. In Mingqi, only Fu Xiaoyi was able to enter her eyes. She had waited for Fu Xiaoyi for so long, but now all her efforts were in vain, and she had to marry someone else? Shun Yu was extremely unreconciled. Shin Yu heard Shin Dongling speaking softly. "Why does second sister not try? Actually, Gentleman Wang is not as bad as you think. After all, the Wang family and the Shin family are well matched in terms of social status. Speaking of which, Gentleman Wang himself is also a good person. If second sister marries over, one would not suffer grievances and live a stable life. Isn't that good?" The more she said it, the more annoyed Shin Yu was. What Shin Yu wanted was not stability, but glory. Only Fu Xiaoyi could give her the envious eyes of everyone. Second sister better not think too much. This kind of blessing is something that some people cannot beg for, like me. Shun Dongling said, "If it was me standing in second sister's position and knowing about this matter, one would definitely not reject it. Instead, one would feel very happy. As a female in this world, do not one seek stability?" Shun Yu was initially somewhat impatient listening, but when she heard the last part, she could not help but pause. A strange feeling slowly floated in her heart, and she could not help but look at Shin Dongling. Shin Dongling's chin was pointed, and it made her look especially weak, as if she would not resist anything. There was a look of trust between her brows, as if she really treated Shin Yu as a sister who treated her wholeheartedly. She seemed to be an extremely easy person to manipulate. A thought slowly floated in Shin Yu's heart. Chapter 542. For the next few days, the Ding capital was very peaceful. In the residence of the Crown Prince of Qin, Princess Ming and also had a rare few days of peace. Other than going out to stroll around Dingjing Street these few days, he did not do anything else. It was just that this was the case on the surface, but it might not be the case in private. Above the residence, Princess Ming had a dainty appearance and was dressed in a golden red muslin dress and was currently eating the preserved fruits on the plate. In front of her, two people who looked like officials were kneeling. Both of them faced Princess Ming An's humiliation, but there was no trace of anger in their professionalism. These two people were not others but the two Shu sons of the residents of the Marquis of Lin and Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao. Ever since Xie Jingxing's time, Xie Ding had no interest in court politics and gave his authority to his two Shu sons, letting them make their way in the court. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao's skills were not low as they were currently working under Prince Ding. Even though Prince Ding did not rely heavily on them, he treated them as people who would be useful to him in the future. Both of them hoped to achieve something. If there was anything that Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao hated, it would be that even if Xie Jingxing died, Princess Yuqing's descendant would be gone. Xie Ding was also unwilling to make Madame Fong the legitimate wife. If Madame Fong was not made the legitimate wife, the two of them would always be the sons of a concubine. Now that Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao were anxious to produce some results, it was to wait till their merits reached a certain height, then they would be able to force Xie Ding to change them to sons. Even if it was for the prestige of the residents of the Marquis of Lin, one could only do this. The reason why they appeared in the Crown Prince's residence was because of Fu Xiuyi's instructions. Fu Xiuyi now had the intention to befriend the Crown Prince of the Qin and wanted to reach some kind of agreement in private. Towards Huang Fu Hao's younger sister, Princess Ming'an, naturally, he had to put in some effort. Thinking that Princess Ming'an might not be familiar with the Ding capital, she sent Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao were Fu Xiuyi's people, but it was in private, and what they usually did was to accompany the important people. Thus others would not find it strange if the two of them flattered Princess Ming, and Princess Ming An's temper was explosive, and these few days she had given Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao much hardship. It was the same today. She looked at the two people in front of her and mocked. "The two of you follow me all day. Don't you feel bored?" Did the officials of Ming-Chi like to follow behind the princesses of other countries? That Ming-Chi's rivers and mountains came too easily. This official's duty is to let your Princess Highness enjoy to the fullest. Xie Chongwu said, "If your Princess Highness is satisfied, then these officials will be at ease." Princess Ming'an sneered, "You are not Bengong's official, and Bengong will not accept such idle people." Heard that in the residence of the Marquis of Lin, there was once a brilliant and outstanding heir of the Marquis, but unfortunately he died young. If it's him, I can consider making him one of my subjects. The two people who were crawling on the ground lowered their heads, but their expressions were clouded for a moment. Even if some people died, the shadows they left behind would not lessen at all. Ever since Xie Jingxing appeared 2 years ago, Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao thought that they would no longer live under Xie Jingxing's shadow. However, whenever people mentioned the residence of the Marquis of Lin, the first person they thought of was still Xie Jingxing. They would always say, "If that little Xie Marquis did not die, one do not know what kind of graceful bearing he would have now." One feared that the Marquis of Lin would be extremely proud. But they had forgotten that both of them were the young masters of the residence of the Marquis of Lin, but no matter how outstanding they were unable to surpass the heroic bearing that Xie Jingxing had left in the hearts of the world. Xie Chongchao's eyes flashed. Older brother is indeed brilliant and outstanding, and had a close relationship with the formidable great general's daughter, 5th Shin young lady. Speaking of which, it is fate. Chapter 543. Hearing Xin Miao's name, Princess Ming'an was first surprised for a moment before her eyebrows raised and her tone involuntarily became heavy. "What is going on? Hurry, and tell this Empress." Xie Chongchao raised his head and looked at Princess Ming'an with some surprise. "Does your Princess Highness remember that in the Academy examinations of Ming-Chi, 5th Shin young lady came out on top in archery?" Princess Ming'an's expression became more and more gloomy. When Xie Chongchao said that, it made her think of how ugly she was when she competed with Xin Miao at the tribute banquet and could not wait to tear Xin Miao apart. When Kai Lin left the stage, "My second older brother wanted to challenge 5th Shin Young Mississippi. If it was my second older brother, He would definitely be able to defeat 5th Shin Young Lady, but at this time my eldest brother rushed out to protect Shin Young Lady and replace her. Xie Chongqiao said. He would always remember that time when he wanted to help Kai Lin vent his anger and rope in Kai Darren, but who knew that Xie Jingxing would suddenly jump out? Even though Xie Jingxing looked romantic on the surface, when did he take the initiative to help a young lady out of trouble? Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao almost determined at that time that Xie Jingxing had some other intentions toward Shin Miao. Otherwise, why would he help Shin Miao out of trouble? It was because of Xie Jingxing's appearance that the two brothers were utterly defeated by Xie Jingxing in the academy examinations, almost becoming a joke, and it became a grievance that Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao could not let go of in their lifetime. I see. Hearing that, Princess Ming sneered. It seems that Xie Jingxing is not a good person. Since he is in cahoots with that slut, he deserves to die and die happily. Xie Chongqiao's and Xie Chongwu's eyes flashed with joy. As long as they could smear Xie Jingxing's name, they would be very happy in their hearts when they heard someone say that Xie Jingxing was not good, as if they were able to express the dissatisfaction in their hearts. That Shin Miao is also an eyesore to Ben Gong. If not for older brother's protection, Ben Gong would not be able to make a move. She would have died 8 to 10 times over. Princess Ming and was somewhat irritated. That day in the Crown Prince's Eastern Palace, Prince Rui's words kept reverberating in Princess Ming An's ears. I also want such a good girl. She was insanely jealous, and with the new and old hatred added together, she could not wait to tear Shin Miao's body into 10,000 pieces. However, she was grounded by Huang Fu Hao. Even if she went out, she would be followed by Huang Fu Hao's guards, unable to do anything. Now that Xie Chongqiao mentioned Shin Miao, those vicious emotions started to grow in his heart. Princess Ming had been arrogant for a lifetime, and there was nothing that she could not obtain. Now that Shin Miao had become a stone blocking her path, there was no reason for her to stay. Her heart suddenly moved and looked towards Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao were kneeling on the ground. If Princess Ming did not allow them to get up, they would not be able to get up. He had been very obedient the entire day. It was as if he would obediently carry out any order given to him. She suddenly smiled. Princess Ming picked up a piece of pastry and carefully looked at the exquisite patterns on the pastry. Xie Chongwu, Xie Chongqiao. You have followed Prince Ding for a few years, so why are you still running errands now? Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao paused, as they did not expect that Princess Ming would suddenly make things difficult for them. But Princess Ming's words seemed to have poked the sore spot of both of them. One had to know that 2 years ago they had secretly helped Fu Xiu to do some unimportant things. For example, now, they were no different from those servants in the palace, and had to please a princess. The reason why they were not valued by Fu Xiu in their eyes naturally had nothing to do with themselves. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao considered themselves to be outstanding in both literature and martial arts, and the reason why they could not stand out till now was because of the title of a Shu Sun. Princess Ming's words were filled with ridicule, and even though they did not speak, their faces could not help but reveal some anger. Chapter 544. Princess Ming said, "Both of you want to be promoted, right? Want to be brought along by Prince Ding's side and be valued by him? Want to have a meteoric rise one day, and do not need to carry the insulting name of a Shu Sun?" The two Xie brothers did not speak. Ben Gong has a way to let both of you get what you wish for. Princess Ming said unhurriedly. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao looked at one another before bowing at the same time, begging your Princess Highness to enlighten. That is Ben Gong. Princess Ming smiled. Ben Gong is the princess of the Qin country, and now Prince Ding has a request for my crown prince older brother. That is why both of you are here to please me. If Ben Gong were to put in a few good words for you in front of the crown prince older brother, and let the crown prince older brother and Prince Ding succeed, Prince Ding would also remember both of your contributions. She looked at her nails that were painted with nail polish. Isn't it because of this that the both of you have been trying to please Ben Gong these days? Xie Chongqiao and Xie Chongwu did not speak. Generally speaking, it was so. But they were sent here to make Princess Ming unhappy, and from the beginning they did not hold the thought that Princess Ming would put in a good word for them. One knew that Princess Ming was domineering and condescending, and it was a good thing that she did not vent her anger on them. So how would they dare to have the thought of gaining her favor? Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao were not fools, and knew that Princess Ming suddenly mentioned this matter. There must be some exchange conditions. Thus they did not speak for a moment. Seeing that both of them did not speak, Princess Ming was somewhat unable to hold back and said it herself. She said, "It is just Ben Gong's words, but how many people would not be able to beg for it? Both of you are not related to Ben Gong, and for Ben Gong to speak up for you without rhyme or reason, naturally there must be some compensation." These words could not be said anymore, so Xie Chongwu said, "May your Princess Highness instruct." "You also know." Princess Ming raised her little nails and said, "Ben Gong has always been very benevolent, and in Ming-Chi have the idea of being kind to others, but there are always some sluts who do not have eyes that want to provoke Ben Gong." Her voice suddenly became sharp. What Ben Gong hate the most now is that little slut of the Shin family. Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao knew about the discord between Xin Miao and Princess Ming would haggle over every penny, and after suffering a loss in Xin Miao's hands, she would definitely not leave it at that. But now that they were in Ming-Chi's territory, Xin Miao was not some insignificant young lady from a commoner's family. If something really happened, Princess Ming would also be a big trouble. Princess Ming looked at Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao, and for the first time, her gaze was so amiable. She said, "I know that both of you are Ming-Chi's top young talents and have outstanding courage. One do not know if you are willing to help Ben Gong with this?" Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao were surprised for a moment before Xie Chongqiao probed, "What does your Princess Highness plan to do?" "Don't worry, this consort is kind. I don't want her life." Princess Ming smiled, "But you have to sell her to the lowest brothel in Ming-Chi, and when she slowly gets used to the life there, then think of ways for the authorities to rescue her." The Xie brothers sucked in a breath of cold air. If one were to be sold to the lowest brothel, the female would almost be ruined. The guests in the lowest brothel were the most boorish martial artists and robbers, and the torturing methods would make one's life worse than death. Many of those who made a mistake and were sent in by their master's servants would not be able to breathe after a day. But Princess Ming had specially instructed not to let anyone die, so when Xin Miao was tormented to the point that she became a walking corpse, it would be the biggest joke in the world if the authorities were to rescue her. One feared that everyone would know that the fifth young lady of the Xin family had become a prostitute that anyone could marry, and their spittle would be able to drown Xin Miao. To let the most distinguished young lady be ravaged by the most boorish and barbaric men, it would be better for Xin Miao to die. Chapter 545. Xie Chongwu forced a smile. The Xin family's guards are all highly skilled in martial arts, so how would one sell fifth Xin young lady to that place? This is your matter. Princess Ming reverted back to her high and mighty look. Since Ben Gong said that you have guts, then how to kidnap Xin Miao would depend on your abilities. Otherwise, if Ben Gong had to consider everything for you, then what use do Ben Gong have for you? Seeing that Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao were still hesitating, Princess Ming softened her tone and guided them patiently. But after the matter is done, Ben Gong will also put in a good word for you in front of Prince Ding, and at least let Prince Ding find a good job for the both of you, and not like now where you can't achieve anything. Such a good deal. Do you still not agree to it? Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongqiao looked at each other and saw the entanglement in each other's eyes. Riches were sought in danger, and for people like them who had been on the official path but did not enter, what they desired the most was nothing more than a day of meteoric success. Princess Ming had provided a shortcut to both of them, and it seemed that they only needed a short period of time to be able to take a step closer to the things that they yearned for. But to kidnap Xin Miao, it was indeed not an easy matter. Even now both of them had some of their own people, but the Xin family was a military family, and those guards were extraordinary. One fear that any random guard around Shen Miao would have high martial arts skills. Moreover, once Shen Miao disappeared, Shen Xian would definitely seal off the entire Ding capital, and at that time it would take a lot of effort to hide Shen Miao and transport her to a brothel. Success, glory, and wealth, but failure, everything would be an illusion. Both of them could not grasp the gains and losses. When Princess Ming'an saw it, she sneered, "Since both of you are hesitating, then treat it as Ben Gong did not mention this matter. There is only one chance, and Ben Gong will not give it a second time. Both of you can withdraw. There are not only the two of you who have guts in Ming Qi. Ben Gong think that there will be someone who is willing to gamble on riches and honor. This official is willing." Not waiting for Princess Ming and to instruct the servants, Xie Chong Chao took the lead to call out. He pulled Xie Chong Wu, and when Xie Chong Wu saw that Xie Chong Chao had already said it, there was no reason for him to say no. He could only bow. "This official is willing to go through water and tread on fire for your Princess Highness without hesitation." That was what he meant by making this deal. Princess Ming'an smiled and said, "Get up. Since you all work hard for Ben Gong will not treat you all badly. This Empress will wait for your good news in the mansion. After that, I will quietly await good news," she said with a smile. After coming out from Princess Ming'an's residence and returning to the residence of the Marquis of Linen, the Xie brothers closed the doors and discussed the matter. Xie Chong Wu grumbled, "Third younger brother, you are too impatient. Just now you agreed in front of the princess. This matter is extremely difficult, and one would make a mistake if one is not careful." Xie Chong Chao did not agree with his words and said, "Second older brother, the princess also said that if we do not do it, she will find someone else to do it. What you and I lack now is not ability, but opportunity. If he succeeds, he will naturally rise to the top. Isn't that what you and I both want to see?" But Shen Miao is not a daughter of an ordinary family. Xie Chong Wu sighed. "Even if we are able to rescue Shen Miao out, what should we do afterwards? Shen Xian is searching the entire city, and it is not safe for us to hide her anywhere. Isn't there still our residence?" Xie Chong Chao smiled. Xie Chong Wu looked at him. "You're saying, no matter how much Shen Xian searches the entire city, there is no reason for him to search his colleague's house. No matter how suspicious outsiders are, they would not suspect that it was us who kidnapped Shen Miao. We have no enmity with Shen Miao, so why would we kidnap her?" Xie Chong Chao smiled, flawless. Chapter 546. Xie Chong Wu's originally somewhat worried expression gradually relaxed, only to hear Xie Chong Chao saying, "It is just that on how to rescue Shen Miao. Both of us need to plan at length." Shen Miao did not know about the agreement between the Xie brothers and Princess Ming'an. The winter days in the Ding capital darkened early, and not long after dinner, the skies turned completely dark. These days the matters in the court were rather busy, and Shen Xian and the rest were extremely busy, thus it was an advantage for Shen Miao. But today she was replying to the invitation under the light. Previously Feng and Ning had sent her a number of invitations, but because she was thinking about Tsang Zaiqing's matter, she did not go even once. She would let Luo Tan accompany Feng and Ning to shop, and in the end, Feng and Ning's eldest young lady temper flared up and sent her an invitation today, asking her to come out 2 days later to shop together. If she did not come out, then there was no need to be friends. Shen Miao thought about it and felt that Feng and Ning could still be considered as her friend. In order to maintain this hard-to-come-by friendship, she mercifully prepared to reply the invitation and agreed to Feng and Ning's invitation. After writing the invitation and handing it over to Guyu, Jingzhe and Guyu went out to close the door. Shen Miao yawned and planned to sleep early, so she walked to the side of the bed. Just as she walked to the side of the bed, she suddenly saw that there was something at the side of the bed that was wriggling under her bedding. Shen Miao jumped in shock. Just now Jingzhe and Guyu were in the room, but they did not notice when this thing came in. In a moment, her mind actually thought of some strange and chaotic thoughts, and she instinctively had a layer of goosebumps. But after a moment of silence, she calmed down. Speaking of which, she was a person who had died once, so what was there to be afraid of even if she really saw a ghost or god? She immediately walked to the side of the bed and lifted up the bedding. Under the bedding there was a big cat-like thing. Its fur was a rare snow-white color and was furry and curled up into a ball. When the bedding was suddenly lifted, it paused for a moment before looking up at her. Shin Miao was stunned for a moment. The little thing ran over to her bed and happily picked up the sleeve of her shirt with its mouth. When it got closer, one could see clearly that it was a white tiger. Shin Miao was crazy. Where did such a white tiger come from in the dark? She heard someone laughing in the shadows, calling out, "Jiao Jiao." Shin Miao subconsciously looked back and saw that the white tiger cub that was biting her sleeve had stood up with a whoosh and was running to the other side. Under the light of the lamp, his purple robe was illuminated inch by inch, and the places embroidered with golden dragon lines reflected a tiny glimmer of light. Her face was also coated with a layer of warm color by the dim yellow candlelight. She was so beautiful that she didn't seem like someone from the mortal world. Xie Jingxing bent down and picked up the white tiger that had turned its head to bite the corner of his sleeve and casually put the white tiger into his sleeve. Mischievous. Shin Miao blinked her eyes and suddenly reacted. Looking at the white tiger in Xie Jingxing's sleeves, she said incredulously, "What did you call it?" "Jiao Jiao." Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows and walked over unhurriedly. He even asked, "Are we a good match?" Shin Miao was so angry that she did not want to talk to him. Was Xie Jingxing still a human to use her little character to name the beast? Xie Jingxing had already walked over to the small table and sat down. He poured a cup of tea for himself and said, "The tea is still hot. It seems that you are very considerate for me." Shin Miao said, "Shameless. How could there be such a shameless person in the world?" But Xie Jingxing actually took a look at the chrysanthemum cake on the small table and said, "TSK. You even prepared snacks, but I am not hungry. Thank you for the trouble." Chapter 547. That was a snack that Jingzhe prepared in fear that Shin Miao would be hungry at night. Xie Jingxing actually thought that she specially prepared it for him. Shin Miao looked coldly at Xie Jingxing. It was better for her not to speak when this person was like this. "These few days are very tiring," Xie Jingxing said. "It is fortunate that I can rest here for a while. Many thanks." Shin Miao's heart moved. Xie Jingxing had not come for some time. Even though Shin Miao was not used to it because he did not come uninvited at night, but now she had some other thoughts. She asked, "What did you do?" Xie Jingxing looked at her with a faint smile. "Do you want to trick me again?" Shin Miao declined to comment. "It's not fair to keep doing this," Xie Jingxing leisurely said. "You know many of my secrets, but I know nothing about you. Why don't you talk about your own matters?" Shin Miao rolled her eyes at Xie Jingxing in her heart. One had to know that Xie Jingxing had the Feng Xian pawnshop as his subordinates and all the major matters of Ming Qi were not in his hands. He still had the cheek to say that he knew nothing about Shin Miao. Shin Miao then felt that Xie Jingxing was more dangerous. "Whatever Prince Rui wants to hear, you can go and find Manager Ji." Shin Miao said coldly, "Manager Ji will be very happy to tell your highness. Manager Ji does not ask about romantic matters." Xie Jingxing said, "Manager Ji also cannot answer what this prince wants to know. Only you can tell this prince." Shin Miao asked, "What do you want to know?" Xie Jingxing held his chin and looked at Shin Miao calmly. After looking for a while, he suddenly said, "What do you like about Fu Xiu-yi?" Shin Miao was slightly startled. She had thought that Xie Jingxing would ask her some inexplicable questions. In these years of dealing with Xie Jingxing, she also clearly realized that her understanding of Xie Jingxing in her previous life was very shallow. A young talent who died young was definitely not the best description for him. Xie Jingxing was a smart and dangerous hunter. If he didn't grasp it properly, it would be easy for the hunter to capture his fatal weakness. She was clear that she had revealed a lot of information and made some mistakes that made Xie Jingxing suspicious. She even wanted to know how to answer when Xie Jingxing asked her how she knew so many things that would happen in the future. She did not expect Xie Jingxing to ask such an irrelevant question. What did she like about Fu Xiuyi? What did it have to do with the plans of the world? Shen Miao asked, "Why ask this?" After not hearing Xie Jingxing's reply for a long time, Shen Miao turned her head and happened to meet Xie Jingxing's gaze. Under the light, Xie Jingxing was staring at her. He was born handsome and charming. At this moment, under the light, his black eyes were like stars. It was as if all the stars in the sky were not as bright as his eyes. However, within that brightness, there was a sharpness that made it impossible for anyone to shift their gaze away. They were firmly locked onto by him, unable to move. That gaze seemed to contain something else. It seemed to be questioning or something else. It was 30% domineering and 70% domineering, but it was an unavoidable state that made the depths of the eyes burn. "Why are you asking this?" He did not answer. Shen Miao heard her heart beating violently, and there was a moment of panic in her. This long-lost, lively voice that came from her chest made her feel helpless and lost, but she didn't resist it anymore. In the cold winter day, the dim candlelight warmly shone. The youth's eyes were sharp and seemed to be able to see through everything as his lips slowly hooked up.
Achoo!
The white tiger in Xie Jingxing's embrace sneezed as it was hit by some fine dust, waking up the two people in the room who were silent. Shen Miao recovered to her senses and said, "Your pet is sick." She actually avoided the question without a trace. Xie Jingxing did not bother with it and instead picked up the white tiger from his sleeves. He looked at it and said, "Delicate?" One did not know who he was talking about. Shen Miao took a deep breath and felt that Xie Jingxing's intention to use this white tiger as his little name was very bad. In the future, when people scolded this animal, Shen Miao would inevitably think of herself. Thinking of this, she was somewhat unhappy with the white tiger, and even Xie Jingxing was not pleasing to the eye. "Since it is delicate, one will ask Imperial Physician Gao to take a look at it." Shen Miao ridiculed, "Anyway, Imperial Physician Gao's medical skills are brilliant. It is the same whether he treats a human or an animal." Xie Jingxing smiled. "Jiao Jiao does not like Imperial Physician Gao, and only likes to stick to this prince." Shen Miao glared at him. Xie Jingxing definitely did it on purpose. "Prince Rue is still not leaving?" Shen Miao said, "I want to rest." Xie Jingxing was displeased. "There will be a day when you can go out with Feng and Ning for an entire day, and this prince would leave in a moment. Really unjust." Even though he said so, he stood up from his seat and walked to the window when he suddenly thought of something and turned back to the person standing beside the bed. "Tell this prince about the question just now in the future." His figure disappeared at the window. Shen Miao walked over to close the window and blew out the lamp before climbing up. The room fell into silence, as if it was just an illusion that someone had come over. It was just that there was a cup of tea left on the table that reminded her that it was not just a dream. Everything was very real, just that on the bed, Shen Miao's hand touched her chest. There was a violent beating, and until now it had not subsided. It was not an illusion. Chapter 548. The heavens were beautiful, and the weather was not good for a few days, but on the day that Feng and Ning wanted to go out, there was a rare sunny day. The sun was warm and comfortable as it shone on the body. But even so, Shen Miao still put on the rabbit fur cloak. Even though there was a heater in the room, it was difficult to protect against the wind outside. If one caught a cold in such weather, it would be a troublesome matter. Early in the morning, Feng and Ning's horse carriage was at the entrance of the Shen mansion to pick up Luo Tan and Shen Miao. The Feng family had always doted on Feng and Ning, and now that Feng and Ning had finished all the lessons in Guangwen Tang at her age, she could not stay in the residence every day, and might as well go out for a stroll. It was just that no matter how big the Ding capital was, there would be a day when one would get tired of visiting places. Luo Tan's arrival made Feng and Ning very happy, and she was very happy to be a person to lead the way for Luo Tan and help Luo Tan find some fresh places to play. But after a long time, Feng and Ning could not take it. Luo Tan was indeed a young lady from the Luo family. She forgot about the jewelry and clothing stores after seeing them, but she was always focused on going to the weapons store. When he saw a weapon that suited him, his eyes lit up. How would Feng and Ning understand this and complained incessantly? That was why she insisted on bringing Shen Miao along. Feng and Ning was wearing a cherry-colored floral skirt and a colorful brocade cloak, which looked extremely bright in the winter. She had also matured over the years, becoming more and more beautiful. However, the moment she opened her mouth to speak, her pretty face immediately became somewhat arrogant. She lifted the curtain of the carriage and said anxiously, "You're waiting for someone to die. Why aren't you getting in yet?" She did not expect Shen Xiao to be standing outside the carriage. Shen Xiao sent Shen Miao and Luo Tan out. He knew that Shen Miao only had Feng and Ning as a friend in the Ding capital. His memory was still stuck on the domineering little girl from 2 years ago. Who would have thought that when he opened the curtain of the carriage, he would see a fresh and lively girl inside? When the young lady saw that it was him, she shrunk her head, and her arrogant voice suddenly lowered as she timidly said, "Major General Shen." Shen Xiao looked at Feng and Ning inexplicably and nodded his head as a greeting. He let Shen Miao and Luo Tan board the carriage and instructed them to pay attention to safety before leaving. Because today it was Feng and Ning's invitation, the Feng family brought quite a number of guards, and Shen Miao and Luo Tan did not bring any other guards, thinking that when it was time, Feng and Ning would send them back to the Shen mansion. After Shen Xiao left, Feng and Ning patted her chest and gave a sigh of relief. It was strange that every time Feng and Ning saw Shen Xiao, she would instinctively feel some fear. Although Shen Xiao did not speak harshly to her, the prestige of the young general was not just for show. Feng and Ning thought of Shen Xiao's appearance just now. After 2 years of not seeing him, Shen Xiao, who had been through the Shaochun city's experience, became more mature and firm. Even though he was still a genial eldest brother, in the eyes of outsiders, his majesty did not diminish. Luo Tan asked Feng and Ning, "Hey, why are you blushing?" Feng and Ning was surprised for a moment before touching her cheeks. It was indeed unusually hot. She used her hand as a fan to fan her face and said, "It's so stuffy in this carriage. It's a little hot." Luo Tan did not suspect anything and said, "You're wearing too much." She then thought of something, and Ning, "Why are you afraid of Biao older brother Qiao?" "When was I afraid of him?" Hearing Luo Tan's words, Feng and Ning quickly refuted. This made Luo Tan jump in shock. Chapter 549. Luo Tan said, Good. You are not afraid. This should be all right." Shen Miao, who had been watching silently from the side, saw Feng and Ning's cheeks flushing with anger, and her heart suddenly moved. In the previous lifetime, the imperial household stood on the wrong side, and Master Feng was implicated. In order to protect this pearl in his palm, he could only marry Feng and Ning to the Biao older brother of the same family. Who knew that Biao older brother had a golden appearance, but was rotten inside? After the Feng family fell, he raised a mistress outside, and even had a son. With Feng and Ning's arrogant temperament, how could she endure such grievances? Afterwards, she took a pair of scissors and perished together with that mistress. In this lifetime, because of Shen Miao's messing around, the forces in Ming Qi's imperial family were evenly matched, and Master Feng did not pick a side. But no one could guarantee that the previous lifetime's ending would not happen again. Shen Miao did not have any feelings towards the Feng family, but if it was Feng and Ning, she would also want to pull her along. Feng and Ning always made her think of Wan Yu, both pitiful people who were implicated by the family. "Why are you looking at me for?" Feng and Ning saw Shen Miao staring straight at her and did not know what she was thinking about. She thought that Shen Miao was brooding over Luo Tan's words. She said in a flustered and exasperated manner, "You also think that I am afraid of your eldest brother?" Luo Tan snickered at the side, and Shen Miao recovered to her senses and shook her head. "Not that. It is just that your dress is somewhat unique." But any female would love to hear others praise themselves, so no matter how angry Feng and Ning was, Shen Miao's words made her unable to get angry. She then said proudly, "Of course. This is the flower that my mother asked someone to find for me." Shin Miao's eyes drooped down, and her heart sighed slightly. Forget it. Everyone had their own fate, and one would not be able to eat hot tofu if one was anxious. Some things were better to take it slowly. One had to say that it was more tiring for 3 people to wander around than 2 people. Because Feng and Ning wanted to shop at the jewelry tailor shop, but Luo Tan wanted to look at weapons and the like, so they strolled from the east to the west and from the south to the north. Luo Tan and Feng and Ning always bickered, and Shin Miao's head hurt from the quarrel. When she went out with both of them, she was as mature as a mother with a child. In the end, both of them quarreled for a while, and at the end coincidentally pointed the spearhead at her, saying that Shin Miao was young like an old woman and more boring than the monks in the temple. In the end, Shin Miao simply ignored both of them. The day was exceptionally lively. The 3 young ladies strolled around and bought so many things that there was almost no space left in the carriage. Feng and Ning was very heroic, and whenever Shin Miao and Luo Tan saw something, she would wave her hands. Bye. If it was not for Shin Miao stopping her, one feared that Feng and Ning would have moved the entire jewelry shop back to the residence. They ate, drank, and played around. When the sun was about to set, everyone decided to return home. Because Shin Miao and Luo Tan were invited by Feng and Ning, it would be inconvenient to bring more guards, so Shin Miao did not bring any guards from the Shin residence and wanted to take the Feng family's horse carriage back. Who knew that just as they went out from the shop and sat on the horse carriage, Feng and Ning flipped through her pouch, and there was some anxiety on her face. The cat's eye hairpin that I just bought is missing. Feng and Ning shopped around the jeweler shops in the Ding capital, and if one were to talk about what she was most satisfied with, it would be the butterfly-shaped cat's eye hairpin. That cat's eye was a rare and transparent sapphire blue color and was very beautiful to look at. When Feng and Ning was eating in the restaurant, she took it out to look at with Shin Miao and the rest. Shin Miao said, "Look again. Just now it was still in your hands. How could it be missing?" Feng and Ning flipped through her pouch and asked her personal maids, but they all said that they did not see it. Luo Tan asked, "Could it be left in the restaurants?" Feng and Ning said, "I do not know." Chapter 550. Why not go back and take a look? Shin Miao said, "You just left, and if you were to drop it, the people in the restaurant would pick it up. I will accompany you to take a look." Feng and Ning thought about it. "I will go myself. It is just a matter of a sentence. If one could not find it, then it is all right. It is not a pity about the 2 silvers, but it is rare to meet one who likes it so much." Luo Tan was somewhat speechless. Feng and Ning was indeed rich and overbearing. In fact, even though the Feng family was wealthy, it was not to the extent of squandering. It was nothing more than the Feng family truly doting on Feng and Ning as their daughter, and did not lack in silver. This caused Feng and Ning to not have any impression of silver, and when she lost something, her first reaction was it is rare to meet one who likes it so much. "I will bring a few guards up to take a look." Feng and Ning said, "All of you wait here for me. I will come down immediately." Shin Miao nodded her head. Feng and Ning brought most of the guards and left. Most likely it was to strengthen the momentum, and in case the waiters in the restaurant wanted to hide it, they would be timid after seeing Feng and Ning's actions. After Feng and Ning left, there was only Luo Tan and Shin Miao left. There were also 4 guards standing guard outside. Luo Tan looked at the sky and said, "When it is peaceful, it would be dark when we return to the residence." She stretched her waist and said, "Today is really tiring. Tomorrow I will be lazy, and no one is to disturb me." Shin Miao was silent. Just now she did not know who was the one who excitedly said that the next time they would play to their heart's content. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard a guard outside saying, "Shin young lady, Luo young lady, this subordinate just picked up young lady's hairpin."
What?
Luo Tan was surprised for a moment. Lifting the curtain of the carriage, there was indeed a guard standing outside the Feng residence holding a glittering gem hairpin. If it was not the cat's eye that Feng and Ning had thrown, what else could it be? Luo Tan frowned. How could a Ning be so rash? One did not even know that the thing had dropped on the ground. That guard walked 2 steps towards the carriage, and Luo Tan reached out to take the hairpin. Just as she held onto the hairpin, that guard suddenly pulled Luo Tan out. Another guard of the Feng family jumped onto the carriage with a whoosh and pushed the driver to the ground. He whipped the horses violently, and the horses were in pain. They suddenly raised their hooves and galloped madly on the street. All of this happened too quickly. Even the other two guards of the Feng residence did not have time to react. By the time they reacted, Shen Miao and the carriage had already run more than 10 meters away. Fortunately, Luo Tan was still in the carriage. Luo Tan's reaction was extremely fast. When the guard pulled her out, Luo Tan firmly grabbed onto the edge of the carriage and leaned back. This was a time where every second counted. Seeing that he couldn't drag Luo Tan down, the man didn't get entangled. He leaped onto another horse and galloped out of the city with the carriage. There were originally many commoners on the street, but they were all stunned by the rampaging carriage. Some of the peddlers who couldn't dodge in time had their shops overturned, but they didn't know which carriage was so arrogant. That carriage ran very fast, and Shen Miao and Luo Tan were thrown around in the carriage until they fainted. At the crucial moment, Luo Tan still remembered to pull Shen Miao's hand and said, "Biao, youngest sister, don't be afraid. We will jump out of the carriage. Jump out of the carriage and reveal our identity. There are so many people outside, and they would have some fear." Shen Miao's heart was slightly warm. She was thrown around in the carriage and was unable to control herself, but she said, "It is too late." Look outside. Luo Tan grabbed onto the edge of the carriage bed and looked out. She was stunned as the familiar streets had disappeared. The small alleys were crooked, and there wasn't a single person. One did not know where this road was. Luo Tan's heart suddenly gave birth to despair. If it was said that just now she still thought of jumping out of the carriage, at least she could save her life. But in an instant, this place was desolate and uninhabited. Even if she jumped out of the carriage, she would only be a fish on someone's chopping block. Chapter 551. Do not worry. They should be coming for me. At that time you can pretend to faint or think of a way to escape, and they will not do anything to you.
Shen Miao said.
How can I leave you and escape by myself? Luo Tan grabbed Shen Miao's hands. In the beginning you saved the Luo family in the Shao Chun city. Even if I cannot save you, I will not leave you behind. If we are to die, we will die together. Shen Miao did not know whether to laugh or cry. Now was not the time to talk about heroism. She barely straightened her body in the shaking carriage and whispered in Luo Tan's ears, "Remember, if you successfully escape, think of a way to send a letter to Prince Rui's residence. Just say that there is a transaction, and the price will be discussed later." Luo Tan was stunned when she heard it and looked suspiciously at Shen Miao. "How is it related to Prince Rui?" "Biao, youngest sister, you. Do not ask so much." Shen Miao said, "This matter is of great importance. Do not mention the matter of Prince Rui to anyone. I will only tell you if I trust you." Luo Tan nodded her head and then shook her head. "No way. I will not leave you alone." Shen Miao still wanted to say something, but the horse carriage suddenly stopped. Shen Miao and Luo Tan could not react in time and crashed into the small table in the carriage. Following that, the curtain of the carriage was suddenly lifted and a person came in and dragged Shen Miao out. Luo Tan hugged Shen Miao's thighs. "Biao, youngest sister." She used all her strength and with this pull, the person outside actually did not manage to drag Shen Miao away. That person was most likely very angry as he suddenly kicked Luo Tan. Even if Luo Tan practiced martial arts in the Luo family all year round, she was after all a young female. After being kicked in the pit of the heart, she immediately fell out of the carriage. With a dong sound, Shen Miao's heart was shocked when she heard it. The remaining guard urged, "Move faster. Do not be discovered by others." They directly cut off the carriage, and one of them did not say a word as he stuffed Shen Miao's mouth with a cloth and tied her hands and feet. After knocking Shen Miao unconscious, he threw her onto the back of the horse. That action made Luo Tan want to spit fire. Luo Tan's eyes suddenly caught a glimpse of a short knife that fell out of the carriage. Today, Foam and Ning had shopped enough at the jewelry shops and mercifully accompanied Luo Tan to shop at the weapon shop. That dagger was bought from there. Without thinking, she grabbed the dagger and rushed towards one of them. That person was a martial artist. He threw Luo Tan to the ground. Luo Tan's gaze suddenly froze. Military school, these were not ordinary guards. These moves were clearly unique to the military. At the very least, these two people were related to the army. Hearing Luo Tan's words, an ominous glint suddenly appeared in the man's eyes. He snatched the dagger from Luo Tan's hand and slashed it backhandedly. Luo Tan clutched her waist and slowly fell down. The other person was still urging, "Stop dawdling, let's go." Only then did the man throw down his knife and mount another horse. The two of them quickly disappeared into the alley. In the gloomy alley, there were only a few messy horse carriages. Luo Tan was lying on the ground. Her apricot-colored dress was gradually dyed red, making her look exceptionally frightening. With a paw slap, Foam and Ning gave the two guards a slap. The two guards immediately knelt down and kowtowed. "We failed to protect our master. Please punish us, miss." "Punish?" Foam and Ning did not get angry but laughed instead. "How should I punish you? Flogging or selling? What is the use of punishing you? Would Shun Miao and Luo Tan be able to return?" The two guards did not make a sound. They also tried to chase after the carriage, but the carriage was extremely fast. By the time they started chasing, there was already a distance between them. The other party seemed to have come prepared, taking small alleys. Towards the end, they had no idea where the carriage had gone. Chapter 5:52. Foam and Ning was going crazy. She had only gone to the restaurant to ask the waiter if he had seen her cat's eye hairpin. When she came back downstairs, she saw that the carriage had disappeared and the surrounding people were all pointing at it. She sent a maidservant to inquire and found out that someone had stolen her carriage. And in that carriage, there was Shun Miao and Luo Tan. Not long after, the remaining two guards returned, but they couldn't find the carriage. Foam and Ning looked at the hairpin that was stained with dust and closed her eyes. Even if she was usually heartless, she was well aware of the current situation. Today's matter was planned by someone. Someone had infiltrated their Foam family's guards in order to kidnap Shun Miao and Luo Tan. What kind of person was Shun Miao and Luo Tan? One was Shin Xian's daughter, and the other was Luo Shui Yan's biological niece. No matter which one it was, they were considered to have some fame in the Ding capital. Someone actually dared to plot against them. That meant that if the other party was willing to take such a big risk, Shin Miao and the rest would definitely be in danger. Thinking of this, Foam and Ning's body trembled. It was she who invited Shen Miao and Luo Tan out to tour the Ding capital. It was she who brought the guards, and it was she who wanted to go to the restaurant midway. If she hadn't gone back to look for the hairpin, a few more guards might have been able to stop the murderers. If she did not seek convenience and agreed to let Shin Miao bring some guards from the Shun residence, then this kind of accident would not have happened. If she did not invite Shin Miao, then today's matter would not have happened. It was all her fault. Foam and Ning's body was tottering, and the maid beside jumped in shock when she saw it and quickly went forward to support her. Young lady must not blame yourself. If one injures one's body, master and foreign would feel distressed when they see it. Foam and Ning shook her head and smiled bitterly. Father and mother would be distressed if I am like this. After knowing about Shin Miao and Luo Tan's matter, what would Shin Foreign and General Shin do? Even if you killed me, you wouldn't be able to compensate me for my mistakes. She covered her face. For the first time, she disregarded her status and burst into tears in front of everyone in the restaurant. What's going on? Where was Jiao Jiao? Where did Cousin Tan go? A solemn male voice suddenly came from outside the restaurant. Foam and Ning released her hand and saw Shin Xiao striding in with a group of soldiers following behind him. Each one of them had an imposing manner, and the people in the restaurant could not help but shrink their heads. Today's Shin Xiao came down early and wanted to return to the residence to ask Shin Miao and Luo Tan if they wanted to go hunting together on another day. who knew that before he could return to the residence, he heard his subordinates reporting that Shen Miao, Luo Tan, and Feng and Ning went out today and met with an accident at the restaurant. Shen Xian and Luo Shuiyan had not returned to the residence and naturally did not know of this news. After Shen Xiao knew of it, he rushed over without stopping, who knew that when he arrived, he would see a gloomy atmosphere in the restaurant, and that arrogant and willful young lady of the Feng family was crying bitterly in the middle. In an instant, Shen Xiao's heart surged with a bad premonition. He strode over to Feng and Ning and asked, "What happened?" Feng and Ning was surprised for a moment as Shen Xiao stood in front of her. He had a tall stature, but his eyes were filled with anxiety, making Feng and Ning suddenly speechless. Shen Xiao and Shen Miao had a very good relationship, and this was a fact that everyone knew. For Shen Miao, Shen Xiao was willing to kill and commit arson. If Shen Xiao knew that Shen Miao was kidnapped, her face was astringent as she spoke with difficulty. "Shen Miao, Luo Tan, and I finished strolling around the shops and returned to the restaurant to take the things." Shen Miao and Luo Tan were left in the horse carriage. Spies infiltrated the Feng residence's guards, and they took away the horse carriage, as well as Shen Miao and Luo Tan. "I've already asked my father to send people to secretly investigate, but..." Feng and Ning held back her tears. "Sorry, it is all my fault." Shen Xiao did not even look at Feng and Ning, but everyone saw him clenching his fists tightly, and one could even hear the crisp sound of his joints. Chapter 553. He took a deep breath and his voice was very calm as he instructed Imo Qing, "Report to the officials to seal the city and search for the person. The Shen family's army can be dispatched, and take my spiritual tablet to pass down the order to search the entire city. If the person is found, the Shen family will hand over 10,000 taels of gold." 10,000 gold taels. The surrounding people gasped in shock. Feng and Ning was also surprised when she heard it, but when she recovered to her senses, her heart felt even more reproachful. Shen Xiao's eyelids did not even blink when he was willing to fork out 10,000 taels of gold. Did it not mean that Shen Miao was a treasure in his eyes, but now Shen Miao's life or death was unknown? "I didn't kill Boren, but Boren died because of me." That was probably the logic behind it. Imo Qing's expression was also solemn as he turned around to receive the orders. Feng and Ning said, "Even though reporting to the authorities would make it easier to guard the city, but as such, there would be rumors in the Ding capital and it would damage Shen Miao's and Luo Tan's reputation." Feng and Ning was a female and naturally understood the importance of reputation to a female. If the matter of Shen Miao and Luo Tan being abducted was spread out by outsiders, it would inevitably be speculated by people with ill intentions. Moreover, it was not that the Shen family did not have any enemies in the Ding capital and could indeed be used by others. Shen Xiao said, "Compared to one's life, reputation is worthless. Even if their reputation was really damaged, so what if the Shen family supported them for a lifetime? It's not like we can't afford it." He turned around and walked out. Feng Anning said, "I'm sorry. Today's matter is all because of me. I'll definitely pay you a visit another day to apologize." "This matter has nothing to do with you." Shen Xiao's voice was emotionless. Those people came prepared. They knew their identities and still made a move. Even if it wasn't you, they would have found a chance to do so. Feng and Ning's heart was slightly comforted, but before she could speak, she heard Shen Xiao's faint words. "But I'm sorry, I can't help but vent my anger when I see you. So it's better that Miss Feng doesn't visit for the time being." He did not even turn his head back as he strode away, leaving Feng and Ning standing alone in the hall. Outside, Qi asked Shen Xiao, "Young master, directly mobilize the Shen family army and not ask foreign's and master's opinion? Ask a fart." Shen Xiao scolded, "Now there is no time to think about this and that. Those people dared to take the risk. Jiao Jiao and cousin Tan were in great danger. He actually dared to have designs on my Shen family. Wait till I catch him. I will fucking kill him." The young and genial young general was infuriated at this moment. He turned over and mounted his horse, "Go to the administrator of the capital. Even if the Ding capital is turned upside down, the person must be found." The news of the Shin family's young lady and Biao young lady being kidnapped in the Ding capital spread throughout the entire Ding capital in no time. This was a fact that could not be concealed. One was that when Feng and Ning and Luo Tan were abducted, there were commoners who were watching and some people knew of Feng and Ning's identity. Secondly, the capital magistrate, the city garrison, the Yamen officials, the Shin family's army, and the Feng family's guards were all mobilized. With such a big movement, it would be hard not to know. Everyone knew that Shin Xian doted on his daughter, but this kind of doting method that almost overturned the entire Ding capital still scared a lot of people. After Luo Shuiyan and Shin Xian got to know of the news, they personally led people to search every house. Unexpectedly, they didn't stop searching until the middle of the night. Xie Jingxing returned from outside and just reached the residence of Prince Rui. He saw Ji Yushu and Gao Yang waiting in the residence. These two people would usually gather at the Feng Xian pawn shop, but because Gao Yang's identity was sensitive, in general, they would not all go to the residence of Prince Rui. Xie Jingxing looked at the two of them in surprise and handed the things in his hands to Tai Yi. When the white tiger in the courtyard saw him enter, it leaped over to Xie Jingxing's boots and intimately bit on his trousers. Xie Jingxing bent over to wrap the white tiger up and asked, "What is the matter?" Gao Yang looked at Ji Yushu, and Ji Yushu stared at the white tiger for a while before making a decision. "There is something to tell you." "What is it?" Xie Jingxing went out of the city alone today, so he really did not know what happened in the Ding capital. Recently, the public security in the Ding capital is not very good, and it is somewhat chaotic. Ji Yushu scratched his ears and cheeks as he looked around and said, "Today there was a young lady who went out to stroll in the city and was just below the restaurant. There were villains mixed in with the guards and directly snatched the carriage away. There were two other officials' young ladies in the carriage. Until now there is no trace of their whereabouts." Xie Jingxing stared at Ji Yushu. Ji Yushu was somewhat frightened by his stare and said tremblingly, "Gao Yang, and I want to remind you that your beauty is not worse than those young ladies. You must be careful." Xie Jingxing calmly said, "Ji Yushu, I say, you also know that person. It is fifth Shun young lady." Ji Yushu quickly spoke and quietly took a step back to hide behind Gao Yang. There was a moment of silence in the room. "Where is the person?" Ji Yushu blankly looked at the empty courtyard. There was only the white tiger that was casually thrown on the ground and was howling in pain. "Are you stupid?" Gao Yang looked at him coldly. "It is all right to be smarter than you," Ji Yushu replied. At the same time, Shin Xiu, who was searching for Shin Miao's whereabouts all over the city, received the news that Luo Tan had been found. Mo Qing said, "Luo young lady is about to die." Chapter 554. When Luo Tan was found, she was in an abandoned alley in the west of the Ding capital. That alley was connected to several alleys, and the route was crooked, making it difficult to find. It was Qi's city guards who were very familiar with every corner of the Ding capital. That was why they discovered Luo Tan's whereabouts. However, even though they had found Luo Tan, the situation did not make them feel relaxed. Luo Tan's waist, which was near her abdomen, was stabbed deeply, and the wound was extremely deep. Because it took some time to find her, when she was sent back to the Shun residence, she was already at her last gasp. Several doctors came in a row, and when they saw Luo Tan's injuries, they could only shake their heads and say that there was no way to save her. This made Shin Xian so angry that he almost pulled out his knife. It was Luo Shuiyan who said, "Since they are all quacks, take Xian's card and invite the imperial physicians from the palace. Aren't all the people in the Imperial Academy of Medicine capable of bringing back the dying? Whoever can cure Tanner will be heavily rewarded by the Shun family." Shin Xiu ordered his subordinates to bring Shin Xian's invitation to the palace to invite the imperial physician. Everyone surrounded Luo Tan's bed, and Luo Shuiyan's eyes were red. Who did it? How could he be so vicious and merciless? Luo Ling's gaze was also heavy. Luo Tan was his Tang younger sister, and now that her life and death was unknown, he naturally felt uncomfortable. However, what made one even more uneasy was that Luo Tan had been found, but there was no news of Shen Miao's whereabouts. Even Luo Tan ended up in such a state, and the other party did not show any mercy. It was obvious that he was a vicious person, so no one dared to think what would happen to Shen Miao. The Shen family soldiers searched nonstop in the Ding capital, but did not manage to find a single clue. Those people seemed to have disappeared into thin air. They had searched all the houses of the flat-top commoners, including the streets and alleys. They couldn't search the mansions of the officials. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the authority to do so. There was a terrible silence in the room. Shen Miao did not know what was happening outside. When she woke up, she did not know what time it was. Her hands and feet were tied, and she could not move. Shen Miao slowly opened her eyes. The other party had forgotten to blindfold her. Perhaps he felt that it was unnecessary. This was a spacious secret room. There was a desk, a cabinet, and a bed. He did not know where this place was. It seemed to be a secret room in someone's mansion. Shen Miao could not even move and could only watch quietly. There was no sound from outside. Nothing could be heard. Previously, Shen Miao was knocked unconscious, and one did not know what happened. One did not know if Luo Tan had escaped or if she had brought the words to Xie Jingxing. Now Shen Xian was a character that everyone in the Ding capital feared, especially when the envoys from the Qin country and the Great Liang had yet to leave. Because Emperor Wen Hui had to rely on Shen Xian's status rose steadily, and with the withdrawal of military power, ordinary people would not dare to touch Shen Xian's head. But at the moment there was someone who did it without thinking. To be so daring and not care about the consequences, Shen Miao was able to guess who that person was. Other than Princess Ming, and who else would use such simple and crude methods? But she did not expect that Princess Ming and would find a helper in the Ding capital so quickly. Obviously, Princess Ming and would not do it herself, and even Huang Fu Hao would not allow Princess Ming and to use such stupid methods. And the person who kidnapped her that day was actually able to mix in with the Feng family's guards and had some understanding of the Feng family. It seemed that he had inquired about her and Feng and Ning's itinerary very clearly, especially when he drove the horse carriage to get rid of the Feng family's guards and walked into a deserted alley. Everything was clear and clearly showed one fact. The helper that Princess Ming found was very familiar with the routes in Mingqi and was obviously a native of the Ding capital. Chapter 555. Princess Ming was such an opinionated person, so it was impossible for her to be related to any small characters. But if it was someone with an official position, how would he be willing to take the risk and bet his future with Princess Ming and to kidnap Shen Miao? One had to know that if Shen Xian found out about this in the future, Shen Xian would definitely not let it go. The officials of Mingqi had always sought benefits and avoided harm, thus they would never do such a dangerous thing. Therefore, it could only be those who had a certain official position but were extremely eager to climb higher, to the point that they didn't even care about their own lives. Among the bureaucrats of Mingqi, who was such a person? Shen Miao could not remember for a moment. But as the matter concerned Princess Ming, Shen Xian would be implicated in many things. One did not know why, but the first thing that Shen Miao thought of was that if Xie Jingxing were to take action, he would be able to find her very quickly. Thinking about it, Xie Jingxing also had the Feng Xian pawnshop, and the Feng Xian pawnshop's information was spread out in all directions. So if the person who abducted her was familiar with every place in the Ding capital, and the Feng Xian pawnshop had been doing business in Mingqi for so many years, so how could it be defeated? Shen Miao could only hope that Xie Jingxing would discover her as soon as possible. She strenuously pulled her hands into her sleeves, and the other party tied the rope very tightly. Shen Miao almost scraped her wrists before she was able to find the hairpin in her sleeves. It was specially made by her. Ever since her rebirth, in order to prevent all kinds of accidents, she had specially made this hairpin. The tip of the hairpin was bent into a hook. In a critical moment, it could probably be used to blind the opponent's eyes. This was a trick she had learned in the palace in her previous life. But now, it could be used to sharpen the ropes binding her hands and feet. Just as she was about to make a move, She heard footsteps coming from outside. Xin Miao's heart moved, and she quickly stuffed the hairpin back into her sleeves. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes, pretending to be unconscious. The door was opened, and it seemed like someone was walking in from the outside. Judging from the footsteps, there was more than one person. One of them said, "The Xin family's movements are too big. If this goes on, how long will it take to transport the people away?" Another person replied, "What are you panicking for? He's in our hands now. It won't be too late to send him out after we avoid the limelight for a while." There were two people. Xin Miao calculated in her heart. Listening to the other party's tone, she was only here temporarily to avoid the limelight, and in the end, they would still send her out. Wherever Princess Ming and could send her to, it would not be a good place. What was slightly comforting was that Xin Xian's actions were extremely fast. Now that the entire city was on high alert and with so many pairs of eyes watching, it would be difficult for the other party to send her out. At least for a short period of time, she would not be in any danger. It was just that Xin Miao's heart was suspicious. Why did the voices of these two people sound so familiar? But she was pretending to be asleep, so she couldn't open her eyes to look. Seeming to feel that there were eyes on her, Xin Miao heard one person saying hesitantly, "Why is she still not awake? Was it because I was too heavy-handed?" Second older brother, "What time is it now? And you still have the mind to care if she wakes up or not?" Another person said, "Do not worry. Even if Xin Miao does not wake up, the princess side will be happy. You have also seen the princess attitude. The more miserable Xin Miao is, the better. It doesn't matter if she is dead or alive. I am just worried." The person who was called second older brother had some worries in his voice if this matter is discovered by father. So, what if father discovers? Do not forget that you and I are father's biological sons. Ever since that little bastard died, father can only rely on us two brothers in the future. That person said, "Moreover, the Xie family and the Xin family are not on good terms. Do you think that father would report his own biological son for a Xin family that is not on good terms with him?" Chapter 556. Xie family? Xie family. In the corner, Xin Miao's eyelashes slightly trembled as she could not hide the shock in her heart. She did not expect that the people who abducted her were actually from the Xie family. That person called the other person's second older brother. Without a doubt, these two people were Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao. Xin Miao's heart was in disbelief. She had never thought that the people who allied with Princess Ming and were Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao. One had to know that even though Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao had always been dissatisfied with Xie Jingxing, but from the previous lifetime, they were like their master, Fu Xiuyi, people who were good at enduring. How could they be so arrogant and conceited in this lifetime, not hesitating to put themselves in danger, and even did the shady business of abducting people? The residence of the Marquis of Lin and was a large aristocratic family in Mingqi, and even if it was a Shu son, it was better than many of the D sons of the official families. Once the things that Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao did were exposed, the entire residence of the Marquis of Lin and would be destroyed. Were these two people crazy? Xie Chongwu spat out, "Is this place safe?" "Naturally safe," Xie Chongchao said proudly. "Who would think that the young lady of the Xin family would be hiding in our residence? Besides, in this mansion, the only people who know about this secret chamber are you and me. Even if Xin Xian really received His Majesty's verbal order and was lucky enough to search our residence, I guarantee that he would return in defeat." "That is good." Xie Chongwu let out a sigh of relief. Whether this matter succeeds or fails, it is all in a single thought, and there must not be a single mistake. Once the commotion outside is over, quickly send the person out. Xie Chongchao nodded his head and took out clean water and rice from the basket before walking to Xin Miao's side and placed 2 bowls in front of her. "Wake her up."
Eat now?
"One cannot starve to death." Xie Chongwu asked. "No need," Xie Chongchao said. "Tie her up. It is not like she does not have a mouth." Don't you think that to let a young lady eat like a dog, Her Princess Highness would be very happy? At that time, the princess would be happy, and it would be good to put in a few good words for us in front of His Highness. Xie Chongwu then said, "It is also good." Third younger brother is thoughtful. "Since that's the case, let's go out first to avoid suspicion." The two of them left after saying that. When there were no more sounds outside, Shen Miao slowly opened her eyes. There were two bowls on the ground in front of him. One was clear water, the other was. Fortunately, Xie Chongwu and Xie Chongchao did not give her something more disgusting to eat. Shen Miao sighed in her heart. It wasn't like she hadn't eaten before. There were even rancid dishes in the cold palace. So what? In order to survive, a person's dignity could be temporarily set aside. As long as there was a chance one day, they could take revenge. But Xie Chongwu's and Xie Chongchao's words finally made her frown slowly. This was actually the secret chamber of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage. If it was really so, then it would be difficult for Shen Xian to find this place. First, without Emperor Wen Hui's verbal order, it was impossible to search the residence of a bureaucrat's family unless there was concrete evidence. But without any rhyme or reason, the Xie brothers and Shen Miao did not have any interactions, so how would others think that they were the culprits of the abduction? Second, if Shen Xian really obtained the verbal order, as the Xie brothers said, this secret chamber was very secretive. Xieting did not know about it. So how would Shen Xian be able to find it? The Xie family took a different approach. The most dangerous place was the safest place. As such, the matter became more troublesome. Shen Miao looked at the clear water in front of her. Could Xie Jingxing find it? At the other end, in the Shan mansion, the imperial physician from the palace finally came. The person who came was dressed in white and was holding a folding fan. If it was not for the medical box on his back, he would have looked like a gentle young master of a noble family. He did not look like he was here to save someone but to appreciate the flowers. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.